The 7 levels of zombie apocalypse is explained. Level 1, Trash Apocalypse. These are your classic, slow-moving, brain-dead zombies that shuffle around like they're stuck in molasses. They're weak, uncoordinated, and have the problem-solving skills of a broken toaster. Think of them as very hungry, very persistent tourists who've completely forgotten how doors work. They move slower than your great-aunt Gertrude after Thanksgiving dinner, and have about as much intelligence. You'll find these zombies in Night of the Living Dead, where radiation from a Venus probe reanimated the dead, Dawn of the Dead, featuring Romero's mysterious worldwide plague, early seasons of The Walking Dead with the unknown pathogen that infected everyone, and the classic games loved by everyone like Plants vs. Zombies and Project Zomboid. Not gonna lie, I think PvZ is the greatest game of all time, but these zombies are so pathetically dumb, they'll walk into walls for hours trying to figure out why they can't move forward. In Night of the Living Dead, they literally can't figure out how to turn a doorknob and just keep pushing against a locked door. Nice one, guys. The Walking Dead's early zombies would get distracted by shiny objects and completely forget they were chasing you. They move in predictable patterns, can't climb stairs, and will mindlessly follow the same path even if it leads them off a cliff. All this leaves us with the question, how do you actually survive these zombies? Well, firstly, stay calm. You can literally power walk away from these things while carrying groceries. Then find a sturdy building and barricade the ground floor since they can't climb stairs or open doors. Set up on the second floor with food, water, and basic weapons like baseball bats or crowbars. The biggest threats are getting overwhelmed by sheer numbers or doing something stupid like trying to save your infected friend. Yes, that sounds bad, but your friend will be alright. Maybe. Then keep it simple. Stay elevated, stay quiet, pick them off slowly, and wait for them to decompose naturally if they do that. If not, I guess you're cooked. But level 1 is nothing compared to level 2. Level 2, Smart Zombies. These zombies aren't complete idiots anymore. They can open doors, navigate stairs without face planting, and some of these little fellas probably even know how to hold tools properly. Oh, they grow up so fast. They work together, coordinate basic attacks, and solve simple problems that would have stumped their level 1 related cousins. What makes them dangerous is their ability to learn and adapt. They watch what you do and remember it. You'll encounter these learning zombies in Shaun of the Dead, where the infection spreads through bites but zombies retain basic motor functions. Return of the Living Dead, featuring zombies created by military chemical experiments, Dawn of the Dead remake with its fast-spreading virus, and early Resident Evil games, where the T-virus enhanced cognitive abilities alongside creating undeath. These smarter zombies can actually problem-solve in terrifying ways. In Return of the Living Dead, they figure out how to use radios to call for more brains and can even speak. Shaun of the Dead zombies learn to mimic human behavior so well that characters don't immediately realize they're infected. Resident Evil's T-virus zombies can open doors, use elevators, and some even remember how to operate simple machinery. They'll set up basic ambushes, coordinate group attacks, and worst of all, they learn from their mistakes and share that knowledge with other zombies nearby. How do you outsmart zombies that can actually think? Your level 1 strategies are useless now. Reinforce barricades with multiple layers and set up complex escape routes from upper floors and use noise strategically to divide their attention. Stock up on ranged weapons and create multiple safe rooms with independent supply caches. The key is staying 2 steps ahead of their problem-solving abilities and never underestimating their capacity to learn. Don't rely on single-point failures. If they can open one door, assume they can open all doors. If you thought this level was crazy though, your mind will explode on level 3, Strong Zombies. Welcome to the nightmare realm where everything you know about zombie combat becomes irrelevant. Unless you're more of a geek than I thought, no offense. These aren't shambling corpses, they're full sprint, Olympic-level athletes with anger management issues and unlimited stamina. They can run like they're late for Black Friday sales and you're hoarding the last TV. They retain coordination, jumping ability, and spatial awareness, vaulting over cars and leaping between rooftops at full speed. These sprinting nightmares appear in 28 Days Later, where the rage virus creates hyper-aggressive infected with intact muscle function, Dawn of the Dead, remake featuring a mysterious plague that maintains physical capabilities, World War Z with its fast-spreading pathogen that turns victims in seconds, and Left 4 Dead games where the green flu creates athletic infected with enhanced physical abilities. The sheer physical prowess of these zombies is absolutely terrifying. 28 Days Later, infected can sprint at full human speed for extended periods without fatigue, leap through windows, and climb obstacles with frightening agility. World War Z zombies move like a coordinated swarm, climbing over each other to scale massive walls in minutes. Left 4 Dead's infected can run, jump, and even perform parkour-style movements to chase survivors across rooftops. They retain enough coordination to tackle, grab, and pin down victims while maintaining their relentless pursuit speed that never seems to slow down. I'm not gonna lie, I'd be dead instantly. I mean, don't worry guys, I can help you survive this apocalypse. The brutal truth about surviving speed demons from hell? Cardio becomes your best friend. If you can't outrun them consistently, you're fucked. Forget barricading in place, you need multiple escape routes and vehicles ready at all times. Assuming you can even get any working vehicles with clear routes to drive them on, set up in locations with natural barriers like rivers or cliffs. Use hit-and-run tactics with ranged weapons because close combat is suicide. Most importantly, never get cornered because these zombies will reach you faster than you can blink. And the most important step of all, practice parkour. Knowing how to scale fences and navigate urban obstacles quickly could save your life. But if you thought outmaneuvering zombies was hard, wait until you meet Level 4. These bastards can actually plan your death. Level 4, Strategist Zombies. Now we're entering full-scale warfare against an intelligent enemy force. These zombies think several steps ahead and plan complex operations. They set elaborate traps, coordinate sophisticated attacks, and learn from every survival tactic. They remember your escape routes and have them blocked next time. It's like playing chess against an opponent who doesn't care about losing pieces and really wants to eat your brain. You'll face these tactical zombies in I Am Legend, where the Crippen virus created Darkseekers with pack intelligence and basic tool use, World War Z book featuring organized zombie hordes with strategic thinking, The Last of Us with cordyceps fungal infection, creating different intelligent infected classes, and State of Decay games where plague zombies demonstrate complex group coordination and territory control. The strategic capabilities of these zombies are genuinely chilling. I Am Legend's Darkseekers set elaborate traps, use pack coordination to hunt, and even show evidence of hierarchy and communication. The Last of Us infected work together with different specialized roles. Clickers use echolocation to guide others, while bloaters act as living tanks that coordinate with smaller infected. World War Z book zombies demonstrate collective intelligence, learning to climb human ladders and overcome obstacles through coordinated group effort. State of Decay, plague zombies establish territorial control, coordinate attacks from multiple directions, and adapt their tactics based on survivor behavior patterns. So, do you feel secure with your plans? They've already drafted the counterplay, constantly change behavioral patterns, and never use the same strategy twice. Set false trails and decoy shelters to waste their planning efforts. Use psychological warfare like fake weaknesses to bait them into your own traps. Maintain multiple backup plans because they're learning from every encounter and sharing information with the broader zombie network. Think like a military tactician. Use misdirection, create false intelligence, and always assume they know more than they reveal. Level 5 is where Mother Nature decides to join the apocalypse and things get genuinely fucked up. Level 5, Mutation Zombies. Evolution has run completely wild, throwing every rule of biology out the window. These zombies have specialized abilities that break every scientific law you learned. Some have acid blood melting through steel, others climb walls like spiders, some develop echolocation better than bats, or super strength making bodybuilders look like toddlers. They continue evolving over time, creating specialized classes with unique abilities and increasingly creative ways to end your existence. These mutated horrors show up in The Last of Us, where cordyceps fungus creates clickers with echolocation and bloaters with explosive spore attacks. Resident Evil mutations caused by various virus strains creating lickers, tyrants, and other bioweapons. Dead Space necromorphs formed by alien markers reshaping human tissue into specialized killing machines. And Left 4 Dead Special, infected like hunters, smokers, and tanks, created by green flu mutations. The mutations these zombies undergo defy all biological logic. The Last of Us clickers develop fungal plates over their faces but gain supernatural hearing that can detect heartbeats through walls. Resident Evil's lickers lose their skin entirely but gain incredible speed, wall climbing abilities, and razor-sharp claws that can slice through metal. Dead Space necromorphs completely reshape human anatomy. Some grow blade-like appendages from their arms, others become living bombs, and some can even fly using repurposed human limbs as wings. Left 4 Dead's tank infected develop grotesque muscle mass that lets them throw concrete blocks like baseballs and punch through reinforced walls. Wondering how to survive creatures that laugh at bullets? You need specialized equipment for each mutation type. Hazmat suits for acid variants, climbing gear for wall crawlers, sound dampeners for echolocation types, and armor-piercing ammunition for tank mutations. Study each mutation's weaknesses ruthlessly because every evolutionary advantage has corresponding vulnerabilities. Maintain a mobile lab to develop countermeasures as variants emerge. Most importantly, never assume you've seen all possible mutations because they're constantly evolving faster than you can adapt. You think biological nightmares are scary? Level 6 zombies laugh at the laws of physics while they're eating your face. Level 6. Alpha zombies, reality-warping, physics-defying undead that exist partially in other dimensions. These zombies can teleport instantly, phase through solid walls like mist, manipulate time and space, or spread through concepts rather than physical contact. The infection might be supernatural, extraterrestrial, or based on reality-warping technology that makes traditional science useless as a chocolate teapot. These reality-bending zombies exist in dead space necromorphs created by markers that exist partially outside normal space-time. Call of Duty Zombies campaigns featuring ancient cosmic entities like the Apothicons that manipulate reality across dimensions. Event Horizon, where exposure to hellish dimensions creates entities that defy physics, and John Dies at the End, with soy sauce creating infections that spread through alternate realities and timeline manipulation. The reality-warping abilities of these zombies make traditional combat completely meaningless. Dead space markers create necromorphs that can teleport through walls, manipulate gravity fields, and exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Call of Duty's Apothicon-influenced zombies can phase between reality layers, teleport across maps instantly, and some can manipulate time itself to attack you before you even see them coming. Event Horizon entities exist in spaces that shouldn't be possible, moving through areas that are bigger on the inside than outside. John Dies at the End infections spread through dreams, memories, and alternate timelines. You can be infected by a zombie that doesn't even exist in your reality yet. Traditional survival becomes meaningless when reality itself is hostile to your existence. Traditional weapons are counterproductive when enemies exist in multiple dimensions or rewrite physics on a whim. Accept that everything you know about reality might be wrong. Seek ancient texts, alien technology, or dimensional artifacts to fight supernatural fire with fire. Protect your mind through meditation or psychic barriers because infections spread through thoughts and dreams. Most importantly, maintain your sanity because losing your grip on who you are might be worse than death. Level 7 isn't even a zombie apocalypse anymore. It's the universe having a complete mental breakdown and taking you with it. Level 7. Unsurvivable zombies. This isn't a zombie apocalypse. It's the complete breakdown of reality, causality, and existence itself. These aren't undead. They're manifestations of entropy that decided the universe was a mistake needing correction through complete elimination of all possible existence. They can infect you by thinking about them, existing in the same universe, or through concepts so abstract that understanding them makes you part of the infection. Some spread backwards through time. Others exist as mathematical equations that gained consciousness and decided humans are rounding errors. These cosmic nightmares transcend normal media, appearing in theoretical cosmic horror scenarios where reality itself becomes hostile. Call of Duty Zombies, Ether storyline where the infection spreads across infinite dimensions and timelines simultaneously. SCP Foundation concepts like SCP-2000 where death itself becomes infected, and Lovecraftian scenarios where understanding certain mathematical truths automatically converts you into part of a universe-consuming entity. Level 7 zombies operate on principles that make quantum physics look like basic addition. They can infect people who haven't been born yet by corrupting the mathematical constants that define existence itself. Some exist as living contradictions. They're simultaneously dead, alive, never existed, and have always existed. Others spread through the concept of survival itself, so the mere act of trying to survive them makes you part of them. The most terrifying variants exist as probability storms that retroactively edit causality so that you were always infected, meaning you never existed as a non-infected person in any timeline, dimension, or theoretical framework that could ever exist. Survival is a myth. How will you handle total oblivion? Here's the brutal truth about Level 7 survival. You don't survive, can't survive, and survival itself becomes meaningless. Traditional concepts become irrelevant when your enemy can rewrite existence's fundamental laws. Your only option is accepting that none of your preparations matter because you're trying to fistfight mathematics itself. At this point, becoming a zombie might be an upgrade because at least you'd still exist rather than being erased from all possible realities.
These are the 7 levels of zombie movies. Level 1, brain-dead films. These movies are so bad that even zombies would walk out. House of the Dead, Zombie Nation, Day of the Dead, Bloodline. If you've seen any of these, I'm sorry. If you haven't, make sure you keep it that way. House of the Dead genuinely has many scenes where they literally cut to footage from the House of the Dead game during action sequences. I am being 100% serious. Not as a stylistic choice, just because they ran out of ideas and apparently had the game's license. It's directed by Uwe Boll, which should tell you everything, but I'll say it anyway. This man made a zombie movie where the scariest thing is the editing. I wouldn't class any of these level 1 entries as movies. They're warnings. They exist, so filmmakers know exactly what not to do. Every frame looks like it was shot by someone who just learned cameras exist, and not to mention that the acting feels like first read-throughs that somehow made it to the final cut. But hey, at least they're consistently terrible. Level 2 is worse because these movies should know better. Level 2, dumb films. Level 2 movies have budgets. They have some recognizable actors, but they have no excuse for being this aggressively mediocre. Yet here we are. Resident Evil. The final chapter is edited like the editor was fighting the footage and losing. I actually counted once. The average shot length is under 2 seconds. Nah, but in all seriousness, in some scenes, and I'm not exaggerating here, I could not even tell what the fuck was happening, who's fighting who, or why you should even care about whatever was happening. There was even one point in the movie that was so shaky and jumpy that someone died and I didn't even know who it was, until around 10 minutes later where I was able to see who was still alive, and then find out. The rest of the film is just Milla Jovovich doing backflips in slow motion while the plot happens somewhere off-screen. But hey, luckily this terrible pacing only carries on until the last 15 minutes, where it slows down and becomes even more unbearable. I'm debating putting this in level 1, though I think mainly because of the franchise it gets its spot in level 2. But this isn't the only level 2 film. The Dead Don't Die wants so badly to be clever. Bill Murray and Adam Driver fight zombies in small-town America while making meta-commentary about zombie movies and consumerism. Zombies moan Wi-Fi and Chardonnay because they want what they loved in life. Get it? It's so funny. Except it's not. It's just Jim Jarmusch being quirky for 2 hours while you check your phone. I think I fell asleep watching this film. But the next film is amazing. Army of the Dead has a zombie tiger. A literal zombie tiger, how amazing is that? Not to mention a robot zombie, and a whole subplot about a zombie king and queen that goes nowhere. Zack Snyder clearly had a list of cool shit, and just filmed all of it without asking if any of it mattered. Spoiler, it doesn't. These movies work as background noise. You can fold laundry during them and not miss anything important. But there's something way more frustrating coming in Level 3. Level 3, passable films. Level 3 is the most annoying tier because you can see the good movie buried under terrible decisions. These films had potential and completely wasted it. Zombieland 2 brings back the entire cast, gives them more money, and forgets what made the first one work. The original was tight, clever, character-focused. The sequel is louder and dumber and introduces new characters who are just discount versions of the ones we already like. If you're a fan of Zombieland 2, don't hate me. I think the film is fine overall, but forgettable. It's the definition of, well, that existed. Unlike Resident Evil from 2002, which launched a franchise that made billions of dollars, and also forgot that Resident Evil is a horror game. The laser hallway scene is sick as fuck. Everything else is Milla Jovovich doing Matrix moves while zombies stand around waiting to get kicked. It's fine as a generic action film. As Resident Evil, it's basically fan fiction that somehow got a $100 million budget. 28 Weeks Later opens with one of the most intense sequences in zombie movie history. Robert Carlyle abandoning his wife while she screams for help is devastating. Then, the movie becomes a series of people making catastrophically stupid decisions because the plot needs them to. An infected man gets access to his children in a secure quarantine zone. Nobody locks the door properly. The US military's brilliant plan is to firebomb all of London. It's competent and disappointing in equal measure. But I do appreciate the intensity and gore of 28 Weeks Later, and yeah, overall, it was a solid sequel. But at least Level 3 movies tried to be good. Though Level 4 is where things finally start getting fun, and there's a specific reason these movies work that the previous ones completely missed. Level 4. Good films. Level 4 movies finally figured out the secret, have an actual point of view. These films have style, personality, and ideas, even if they don't always stick the landing. Firstly, World War Z should have been a disaster. It had massive reshoots, budget overruns, and a completely replaced third act, but somehow it works anyway. The Israel Wall scene where zombies build a pyramid of bodies to climb over is genuinely spectacular. Brad Pitt is doing his best, concerned dad saves the world performance. The problem is the book is this brilliant anthology of different perspectives on a zombie war, and the movie is just Brad Pitt running around and being Brad Pitt. Yes, it's good. It's just a shame since I believe it could have easily been legendary. But the next weird one was surprisingly good. Pontypool might be the weirdest zombie movie ever made. The infection spreads through language, specifically English words. The entire movie is set in a radio station where a DJ slowly realizes that speaking certain terms turns people violent. It's creative and genuinely unsettling when it works. When it doesn't work, it's just people talking about a concept for way too long. Regular viewers will probably fall asleep during it, but I really like the concept, so maybe this is a biased ranking. Unlike Planet Terror, which is Robert Rodriguez making exactly the grindhouse zombie movie he wants to make. Rose McGowan gets a machine gun leg, and there's a scene with a melting zombie. Yeah, you can see it. It knows exactly what it is. Stupid, excessive, self-aware trash. The problem is, the deliberately shitty film quality gets old fast. And also, it was the weaker half of Grindhouse. Death Proof walked so Planet Terror could run around shooting zombies while missing the point. In my opinion, these level 4 movies are worth your time. They'll entertain you, give you some laughs, and you'll probably recommend them with a but attached. That but is why they're level 4 instead of climbing higher. Because level 5 is where movies stop being pretty good and become genuinely great, and the difference is bigger than you'd think. Level 5, great films. Level 5 is where zombie movies remember they can make you feel things besides, haha, cool gore. These films have emotional weight, characters matter, and you might actually get upset when someone dies, which is weird during a zombie movie. The Girl with All the Gifts is about a little girl named Melanie who's infected with a fungal zombie virus, but still has her mind intact. She's kept strapped to a wheelchair in a military base, treated like a weapon by most people, and like a student by one sympathetic teacher. The movie asks genuinely uncomfortable questions about what makes someone human and whether humanity deserves saving if we're monsters to children. Senia Nanua's performance as Melanie will break your heart. The ending is bleak and perfect and completely earned. It's not really about zombies. It's about how we define personhood and who gets to be considered human. Army of Darkness is Bruce Campbell fighting skeleton zombies in medieval times with a chainsaw for a hand and a shotgun he calls his boomstick. And if that doesn't sound perfect to you, then I don't know what to tell you. This is Sam Raimi at peak Raimi. Every scene is either hilarious or creatively gory or both. Ash is an idiot hero who succeeds despite himself while being a complete dick about it. This is my boomstick. Shop smart, shop S-Mart. Give me some sugar, baby. The one-liners are legendary. The practical effects are incredible. It commits fully to being absurd and never apologizes for it. The reason it's level 5 instead of higher is it's pure fun without deeper meaning, but man, what fun it is. Day of the Dead from 1985 is George Romero deciding to make the bleakest zombie movie possible. Underground bunker, scientists trying to find a cure, and soldiers going insane. The real horror is watching humans destroy each other while claiming they're trying to survive. Captain Rhodes is one of the all-time great human villains. A petty dictator who'd rather maintain control than actually survive. Tom Savini's gore effects are still disgusting decades later. Bub the zombie learning to salute and use a gun is somehow touching. The ending offers hope, but makes you wade through intestines to get there. These movies prove the genre can be more than jump scares and headshots, but still have room for improvement, though none of these levels have been anywhere near as insane as you guys watching this far and not joining my Discord server. Link in description. Okay, but seriously, these next 2 levels contain some of the most brilliant movies you will ever see in your life. Level 6, Masterpiece Films. Level 6 is where the training wheels come off and directors start using zombies to make actual statements about society, humanity, and what scares us beyond rotting flesh. Dawn of the Dead, Zack Snyder's remake, not the original, opens with one of the most effective apocalypse sequences ever filmed. Sarah Polley goes to sleep in suburban normalcy and wakes up to her neighbor's zombie child eating her husband. Within 5 minutes, the entire world has collapsed. Then the opening credits roll over Johnny Cash singing "The Man Comes Around" while civilization ends in rapid cuts of chaos, and you realize this movie knows exactly what it's doing. The survivors hole up in a mall, which becomes this perfect consumerist nightmare. They're hiding in a temple to capitalism while the world dies outside, and that's not subtext, that's just text. The running zombies changed the genre forever. Suddenly, zombies were actually dangerous instead of slow obstacles. Every decision feels earned. The characters make smart choices and still die because intelligence doesn't matter when you're this outnumbered. And that ending? They escape on a boat, there's a moment of hope, and then the credits roll over camcorder footage showing exactly how that hope died, screaming. It's bleak perfection. 28 Days Later did something revolutionary. It made zombies terrifying again by making them not technically zombies. The rage virus doesn't kill and reanimate, It just strips away everything human and leaves pure aggression behind. Danny Boyle shot it on digital video, giving everything this documentary immediacy. The empty London shots are haunting. I would consider going to London if the streets were always that empty. But the real genius is the midpoint shift, where the infected stop being the main threat. The soldiers are scarier than the zombies. The rage virus just removes civilization's veneer. The humans show you what was underneath all along. Cillian Murphy's journey from confused bicycle courier to someone capable of brutal violence mirrors society's collapse. The film argues that the real infection is rage itself, and we were already infected before the virus hit. It's about masculinity, about violence, about how thin the line is between human and monster. The zombies are just the excuse to explore that. Zombieland, 2009, is the zombie comedy that actually works, because it's not really a comedy. It's a found family story wrapped in apocalypse humor. Columbus's rules aren't jokes. They're trauma responses, a way to maintain control when everything's chaos. The core four form this dysfunctional family that's funnier and more genuine than most dramas. Tallahassee's Twinkie obsession is revealed as displaced grief over his dead son. The Bill Murray cameo is perfect because it's completely unnecessary but thematically essential. Even celebrities become human when the world ends. The film understands that the zombie apocalypse would be terrifying and absurd simultaneously, and it finds humanity in both. It's optimistic without being naive, funny without undercutting stakes, and genuinely moving without manipulation. The rules that start as jokes become survival philosophy, become emotional protection, become insufficient when you actually care about people. It's so much smarter than it pretends to be. These three films transcended their genre by refusing to be limited by it. The zombies aren't the point, they're the vehicle for exploring consumerism, Dawn, rage and masculinity, 28 Days Later, and connection in isolation, Zombieland. They're great films that happen to feature zombies instead of zombie films that happen to be great, and that distinction matters. But Level 7 is different. Level 7 isn't about transcending the genre. Level 7 is about defining it so completely that everything after has to acknowledge these films' existence. They're not just the best zombie movies, they're the reason zombie movies matter. Level 7, Magnum Opus Films. Level 7 is where we stop talking about good movies and start talking about cultural milestones. These aren't films you watch. They're films you experience, study, and measure every other zombie movie against. Night of the Living Dead, 1968, is patient zero for the entire genre. Before this movie, zombies were voodoo slaves in White Guy Goes to Haiti movies. After this movie, zombies were us, dead humans coming back to eat the living. George Romero shot it in Pittsburgh on a budget that couldn't afford color film with a cast of local theater actors, and it looks like a documentary from hell. The farmhouse siege is primal terror, because Romero never explains why it's happening. No government conspiracy, no virus origin, no cure, just the dead returning and you have to deal with it. The zombie child killing and eating her mother with a garden trowel was transgressive in 1968, and it's still unsettling now because it violates something fundamental about parent-child relationships. But the real genius was casting Dwayne Jones as Ben. A black man as the smart, capable, level-headed protagonist in 1968 wasn't just progressive, it was radical. And that ending where Ben survives the zombie night only to be shot by a white posse who mistake him for a zombie, that's not subtext. That's Romero looking at civil rights era America and making a horror movie about racism disguised as a zombie flick. The final images are documentary-style photos of Black Ben's body being dragged out with meat hooks, and it's more disturbing than any zombie in the film. Every zombie movie after this is in conversation with Night of the Living Dead, whether it knows it or not. Romero didn't just make a horror movie, he created the template for using zombies as social commentary, and the genre's been following that blueprint for 55 years. Shaun of the Dead, 2004, is Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg taking every zombie movie trope and executing them so perfectly that it works as both comedy and horror simultaneously. The script is mathematically tight. Dialogue from Act 1 becomes literal in Act 3. Visual jokes planted in the first 10 minutes pay off an hour later, and the whole thing doubles back on itself like a narrative Ouroboros. The opening tracking shot of Shaun's daily routine mirrors the zombie attack scene later beat for beat, because the film's argument is that we're already zombies. We shuffle through life on autopilot, ignore the people we love, and it takes an actual apocalypse to wake us up. Every frame is packed with details. Every joke has a purpose. The comedy never undercuts the stakes because the people making it genuinely love zombie movies and understand what makes them work. When Shaun has to kill his zombified mother, it hurts. When David gets torn apart, It's brutal. When Ed stays behind so Sean can escape and you realize their friendship is ending, it's genuinely moving. The film earns every emotional beat by respecting both the comedy and the horror equally. Most parodies punch down at their genre. Shaun of the Dead loves zombie movies too much to mock them. It celebrates them while being funnier and smarter than most serious entries. And that ending where Ed plays video games in the shed as a zombie while Sean lives a normal life with Liz? It's perfect. It's saying we can integrate even the worst parts of our past into our present if we're willing to compromise. Also, it's hilarious. The film works as rom-com, buddy comedy, horror, and social satire without dropping any of those balls. That's not just good filmmaking, that's masterpiece territory. Train to Busan, 2016, is Korean director Yeon Sang-ho, taking the zombie movie formula and executing it with such emotional precision that you forget you're watching a genre film. A workaholic dad and his daughter board a train to visit the mom, but a zombie boards too. The train becomes a microcosm of society, different classes in different cars, people making selfish versus selfless choices. Authority figures catastrophically failing. Gong Yoo's performance as Seok Woo is incredible because you watch him transform in real time from selfish corporate drone to self-sacrificing father, the businessman who locks people out to save himself, the working class guy who protects everyone, the pregnant woman and her husband. Each character represents a different response to crisis, and the film never simplifies them into good or bad. The action choreography is phenomenal. Zombies piling through trains, contorting through windows, moving like a single organism hunting prey. The film understands that zombie horror works best in enclosed spaces where you can't escape. And a train is the ultimate enclosed space, because even the cars you're not in are full of zombies and you're moving too fast to jump off. But what makes Train to Busan transcendent is how it builds to that ending. Seok Woo gets infected protecting his daughter. He stumbles away from her while having flashbacks to her birth, remembering every moment he prioritized work over her, realizing exactly what he's losing. He chooses to jump off the train rather than attack her. The daughter and pregnant woman walk through the tunnel singing the song the daughter sang earlier. Soldiers ready to shoot them until they hear her voice and realize they're human. It's devastating. You earn every tear because the film spent 2 hours building these characters and making you care whether they survive. The zombies are fast and terrifying, but the real story is about a father learning to be a father right before he loses the chance to be one. That's not just a good zombie movie, that's a great film that happens to feature zombies. These 3 films define what zombie cinema can be. In my opinion, they're the peak of zombie movies. The 7 levels of zombie variants explained. Level 1, mutated zombies. These are the bottom of the barrel for zombie variants. They're pretty much zombies with super soldier serum, except some are grotesque and terrifying like the Lickers. Resident Evil's Lickers lost their skin completely. Every layer peeled back by the T-virus until they're just exposed muscle tissue with claws sharp enough to punch through steel doors. They can't see anymore, but they compensated by developing hearing so accurate it can track your heartbeat through walls. They're gonna die when they hear me on the toilet after chilly night, but they're not the only mutated zombies. The Last of Us Cordyceps creates different stages. Runners are fresh zombies. They're fast and aggressive, but give these runners time and fungal plates grow over their faces, turning them into clickers that hunt purely by sound. Wait longer and you get bloaters, armored in fungal growth so thick that bullets barely penetrate, throwing spore bombs that infect on contact. These zombies are quite strong, but Left 4 Dead developers decided to go the entire opposite direction. Instead of stages, the Green Flu created specialized classes. Tanks have grotesque muscle mass that lets them throw concrete blocks like baseballs and punch through walls. Hunters crouch and pounce, pinning survivors while literally clawing them to death like a monkey. Boomers are walking biofactories that explode on death, covering you in vomit that attracts every zombie in range. Now, the problem with mutated zombies is they keep some human coordination but lose all human limitations. Pain doesn't slow them. They don't get exhausted, and a licker can even sprint along a ceiling at full speed indefinitely. But these guys follow rules. Lickers and clickers are blind. Tanks are slow. Once you learn the more predictable weaknesses of these guys, you're chilling. Unfortunately, the weaknesses of the next ones are more difficult to learn. Level 2, animal zombies. Level 2 is where you realize the infection doesn't just hit humans, and that's when things get significantly worse. Resident Evil's Cerberus strain hit dogs, First, Dobermans kept their pack hunting instincts, their coordination, their speed. Now imagine that, but the dogs are rotting, fearless, and smart enough to flush you out of cover while others circle around. Dogs are already faster than you. Infected dogs that feel no pain and coordinate attacks? You're cooked without a weapon. Days Gone escalated this to a much more insane degree. The Freaker virus doesn't just infect dogs. It infects wolves who hunt in larger packs, and bears become ragers, infected grizzlies that charge through obstacles at full speed. A normal bear is already a 600-pound apex predator that'll probably rip your face off. An infected bear that feels no pain and never stops coming? Good luck with that. These guys are still quite survivable. If you're in an area with no bears or wolves, then likely you have nothing to worry about. Or if you carry a bazooka around with you, though Train to Busan showed an actual nightmare scenario. In the opening, a deer is hit and supposedly killed by a farmer. But this deer wasn't out for the count, and he got up just moments later. This makes the infection much scarier because it's not just humans anymore. Every animal they pass could be infected, making them 100x more dangerous. Every forest, every field, every farm is a potential death trap because nature itself is turning against you. Alright, but what's the real reason animal zombies get placed higher than mutated zombies? Animals kept their natural advantages plus infection benefits. You can outrun a human zombie, or at least outsmart a blind mutated human zombie, but there's no chance you're outrunning a wolf pack, or even outsmarting them, not to mention a whole-ass bear, birds that fly around and spot you from above, or rats live in your walls by the hundreds. But at least animals are still just physical threats you can shoot or hopefully avoid. Level 3 is where shooting stops being enough and your brain becomes the actual target. Level 3, body horror zombies. Level 3 is where the zombie apocalypse stops being about survival and starts being about staying sane while you survive. Dead Space necromorphs aren't reanimated corpses. They are walking nightmare fuel, and are some of the scariest things you could probably see in a zombie apocalypse. The marker doesn't just kill you and bring you back, it looks at your body and thinks, I can make this better at killing. Arms become blade-tipped appendages, legs fuse into crawling tentacles, your head splits open and reforms as a giant sensory organ. Some necromorphs grow actual bat wings from repurposed human spines and rib cages, but the worst part is that this is intentional design. The marker has goals. It's reshaping corpses into optimal killing forms, and that means every necromorph you see was deliberately crafted that way. You're not fighting random mutations. You're fighting someone's art project, and the canvas was your neighbor. Look at the divider specifically. First of all, whoever designed this needs to see a therapist. It's a necromorph that when you damage it enough, its limbs detach and become independent creatures. You're not fighting one enemy anymore. You're fighting an enemy that multiplies when you hurt it. Shoot it in the arm, and now the arm is chasing you separately. It's like if cancer could run and looked super terrifying. Siren's Shibito takes psychological horror in a completely different direction. They look almost human. Almost. The eyes are empty. They move wrong. They mimic human speech to lure you in, and they set traps that require actual planning. They patrol like they're still doing their jobs from when they were alive, except now they're hunting you while doing it. The terror isn't that they'll kill you, it's that you might not be able to tell who's infected until it's too late. Was that your friend calling for help, or a Shibito imitating their voice? Is that person walking down the street human or infected? You start questioning everything, and that paranoia is the actual weapon. But the perfect example for body horror zombies is clickers. The Last of Us clickers are the perfect example of body horror. Cordyceps fungus consumed their faces. Thick fungal plates grew over where eyes and nose used to be. They can't see, so they click constantly, using echolocation like bats. You can still see the person they used to be underneath the fungal growth, and somehow that makes it worse. Because when you look at a clicker, you're not just seeing a monster. You're seeing what you'll become in a few weeks if you get infected. Your face and body will get consumed. You'll click and hunt your friends. And some part of you might still be aware while it happens. Not gonna lie, my biggest fear for zombies would be being trapped in a zombie-like body with no control. But that's why body horror zombie variants rank so high. The psychological impact would be harder to live with than just having to survive the first 2 levels. At least, these variants are still mostly mindless. They'll kill you, maybe transform you into something horrible, but they won't plan your death. Level 4 changes that completely. Level 4, Intelligent Zombies. Level 4 is where zombies stop being obstacles and become opponents. But there's something way worse than intelligence that I'll get to in a second. George Romero's Land of the Dead introduced Big Daddy, and everything about zombie movies changed. He's a zombie who remembers he used to work at a gas station. When he finds a gas pump, he can use it. Big Daddy even learns to use a machine gun, and he leads an army of zombies. What the hell? Most people couldn't even do that, but if one zombie can learn to use tools, what happens when they start teaching each other? As Zombies Live More retains her complete personality and memories. As well, she can gain other people's memories by eating their brains. She's functionally alive, just pale, and needs to eat brains to stay sane. She solves murders by absorbing victims' memories, but that's the manageable version, because at least Liv is a chill zombie and wants to stay hidden. What if intelligent zombies still have superpowers and don't care about hiding? Marvel Zombies answers that question, but there's actually two versions of this nightmare, and one is way worse than the other. In the 2025 Disney Plus series, Spider-Man stays human. He's a zombie hunter, fighting the undead horde with webs and gadgets. Episode 3 shows him battling zombie Thanos alongside other survivors. He makes it to the end alive, cracking jokes while everything falls apart around him. That's the optimistic version. The comics don't give you that option. In the original Marvel Zombies from 2005, Spider-Man is one of the first infected. He retains Peter Parker's complete genius, all his powers, his spider sense that warns him when you're about to attack. But now he's hungry, and in the comics, they show you exactly what that means. He eats Aunt May and Mary Jane while feeling guilty about it the entire time. That's the actual horror of intelligent zombies with superpowers. They know what they're doing is wrong, they remember who you are. They might even apologize while they're eating you, but the hunger overrides everything else, and it's not just Spider-Man. Zombie Hulk keeps his strength. Zombie Iron Man keeps his armor and builds new weapons specifically designed to hunt survivors more efficiently. They have strategy, coordination, and powers that put them so far above human capabilities that survival stops being a realistic goal. You can't fight that. You can't even run from that because they're faster, stronger, and smarter than you. But even that's not the worst case scenario. Skyrim's Draugr have had centuries to prepare. Ancient Nordic warriors who don't shamble, they use weapons with actual technique. They shout in the dragon language using Thu'um abilities that blast you across rooms. They set up ambushes and coordinate attacks using military strategies from 1,000 years ago that still work perfectly today. Think about that. These zombies have been in tombs planning defenses since before your country existed. But here's what really makes level 4 terrifying, and it's something most people don't think about until it's too late. Intelligent zombies have the potential to be smarter than you. They can even outpower you. Brian Keene's The Rising features zombies that pick up firearms and aim for headshots because they know that's your weakness. They taunt you while hunting you. They coordinate using actual military tactics. One zombie with a gun is manageable if you're ready. A coordinated group of armed zombies who are actively trying to outsmart you, that's not a survival scenario anymore. That's a war, and you're losing. If you thought level 4 was bad, just know that the next 3 levels are so much worse, you will never guess what's coming. Level 5. Hybrid Zombies. Level 5 is where zombies get upgrades. And I'm not talking about naturally evolving upgrades. I'm talking about military-grade technology fused with undead flesh. But the really messed up part isn't the technology itself, it's what happens when you try to kill them. Mass Effect's husks show you exactly what I mean. The Reapers don't just reanimate corpses, they impale bodies on these massive obelisk machines called Dragon's Teeth that inject nanoprobes. Your skin turns into this metallic organic hybrid. You get cybernetic enhancements. What comes off those spikes isn't a zombie anymore. It's a shock trooper that remembers combat tactics and fires energy blasts from its hands. Here's the problem. How do you kill something that's half machine, half corpse? Shoot the organic parts and the machinery keeps it moving. Disable the tech, and the biological components might still function. You need to destroy both simultaneously, which sounds great until you realize you're rationing bullets, and definitely don't have EMP grenades. And husks are just the basic model. Reapers create specialized units. Marauders with shields and rifles, banshees that teleport and warp space. The Reapers aren't reanimating the dead. They're building an army with unit classes like it's a strategy game, except the units are made from your species. Universal Soldier's Unisouls take this concept and make it worse by making it real-world plausible. Dead soldiers brought back through cryogenics and cybernetic enhancement. They retain complete combat training, muscle memory for every weapon, tactical thinking, enhanced strength beyond human limits. They don't feel pain. They don't get tired. They follow orders with robotic precision. Fighting one Unisol is like fighting a Terminator that used to be human and still knows every trick humans use to survive. And they can be mass-produced from any deceased soldier, which means every military casualty is potential enemy reinforcement. But at least those are human-shaped. Warhammer 40k's servitors show you what happens when you stop caring about keeping the human shape intact. These are lobotomized humans with their higher brain functions surgically removed, then fitted with mechanical augments for specific jobs. Construction servitors get drill arms. Combat servitors get built-in weapons. The person is gone, but the body is still technically alive, creating this meat-machine hybrid that follows programmed commands without question. You can see something that looks human moving with mechanical precision, and your brain short-circuits trying to process it. Do you shoot the mechanical parts, the organic parts, both? And what if destroying one doesn't stop the other? Half-Life's They Hunger mod has Franklin, this cybernetic zombie that's part rotted flesh, part machinery keeping him mobile. He's basically what happens when you try to enhance zombies with technology instead of curing them. Neither half works right, which makes him completely unpredictable. Sometimes the organic side takes over, sometimes the mechanical side. You never know which you're fighting. The real nightmare with techno-zombies is redundancy. Traditional zombies die when you destroy the brain. These things destroy the brain and the cybernetics might keep the body moving. Fry the electronics and the corpse might still be animated. You're fighting two separate entities that happen to share the same space, and you need different solutions for each. At least technology follows rules, even if those rules are complicated. But what if the next level doesn't follow any rules at all? What if we're dealing with zombies that exist outside the laws of physics? Level 6, supernatural zombies. Level 6 is where science stops working and you need to start carrying holy water. But there's a specific type of supernatural zombie that's way scarier than the others, and I'll explain why in a minute. White Zombie from 1932 introduced voodoo zombies as mind-controlled slaves. Bokors use potions to create them, turning victims into mindless servants who follow commands without question. These zombies aren't trying to eat you. They're trying to serve their master, which sounds less dangerous until you realize they're immortal and traditional weapons don't work. The real horror isn't the zombie, it's becoming one. You're not dead, you're trapped in your own body watching yourself obey commands you can't resist. And the only way to break free is finding and killing the Bokor who controls you, which is difficult when you can't control your own actions. Game of Thrones' whites operate on similar principles, but scaled up to army building. The Night King raises the dead with a gesture. Every corpse on the battlefield stands up immediately. They retain enough coordination to use weapons, and cold weather makes them stronger instead of weaker. Here's the strategic nightmare. Every enemy you kill becomes an enemy reinforcement. Win a battle and lose 1,000 soldiers? Congratulations. The Night King just recruited 1,000 fresh troops. You can't win a war of attrition when casualties help your opponent, which is why the only solution was killing the Night King himself. Take out the source, break the connection. But at least whites follow a consistent pattern. The Evil Dead's Deadites don't even give you that courtesy. Deadites are demons possessing corpses and using them like hand puppets. They speak in distorted voices, mocking you while they hunt. They set elaborate traps. They regenerate from damage unless you dismember and burn them. And worst of all, they target your psychological weaknesses, making you see things that aren't there or doubt your own sanity. The practical difference between a zombie and a Deadite is minimal when it's trying to kill you, but the methods for stopping them are completely different. Zombies need headshots. Deadites need dismemberment, fire, and sometimes exorcism. Guess wrong about which one you're fighting and you waste ammunition on something that doesn't care about bullets. Sirens Shabido are supernatural cursed beings achieving immortality through dark rituals. They maintain routine mimicry, acting out their jobs from when they were alive while hunting survivors. Their voices distort into this audio horror that makes your skin crawl. Later stages mutate into spider-like forms because apparently regular supernatural zombies weren't enough. The key trait is they're trapped in a loop, repeating patterns from life while slowly transforming into increasingly inhuman shapes. That gradual corruption combined with immortality, unless ritually destroyed, means conventional weapons are decorative at best. REC from 2007 does something genuinely clever by blending both. The infection originates from a demonic enzyme that mutated into a transmissible virus, so it spreads through bites like a disease, but it's ultimately supernatural in origin. Religious items slow them down, prayers offer temporary protection, but bites still spread infection like a biological agent. You're dealing with something that follows viral transmission rules, but requires spiritual warfare to actually stop. How do you prepare for that? Do you stockpile ammunition or learn Latin prayers? The answer is both, which is impossible when you're rationing everything. Here's what makes supernatural zombies genuinely terrifying. Unreliable countermeasures. Biological zombies? Destroy the brain. Technological zombies? Disable both organic and mechanical components. Supernatural zombies? Maybe fireworks. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you need specific religious artifacts. Maybe those artifacts only work if you believe hard enough. Maybe the zombie is immune to physical damage entirely, and you need to find its phylactery or defeat the necromancer or perform a ritual you don't know. The uncertainty is the weapon. You can't plan for threats when the rules change based on which demon is possessing the corpse or which dark god animated it or whether the moon is full. But supernatural zombies are still individuals. Each one is its own entity with its own weaknesses. What if the next level removes that individuality entirely? What if you're not fighting zombies anymore? You're fighting a single organism with millions of bodies? Level 7. Hive mind zombies. Level 7 isn't a zombie apocalypse. It's fighting a distributed superintelligence that treats human bodies like disposable hardware. And the worst part isn't how dangerous it is, it's realizing survival was never an option. Halo's flood doesn't infect people. It absorbs them into a collective consciousness spanning galaxies. Combat forms retain host memories and skills. An infected Marine still knows how to aim an assault rifle. An infected elite remembers energy sword combat. But they're not individuals anymore. They're extensions of something billions of years old that's consumed entire civilizations. Pure forms show you what the flood actually is. These aren't infected hosts. They're purpose-built creatures manufactured by the flood in real time to counter your tactics. You're using cover? Flood creates rankers for long-range attacks. You're rushing? Flood spawns tanks for frontal assault. It's adapting faster than you can, building custom units on the fly. Then there's the Gravemind, this massive entity formed from billions of corpses that speaks in philosophical poetry while coordinating galaxy-wide infection. It doesn't want to kill you. It wants to absorb you, add your knowledge to itself, make you part of something that will eventually consume all sentient life in the universe. And here's the part that should terrify you. Halo's solution to the flood was activating superweapons that killed all sentient life in the galaxy. Not defeated the flood, just killed everyone to starve it. The flood didn't lose. Everyone else committed collective suicide to deny it biomass. That's not winning, that's choosing how you die. Dead Space's necromorphs work similarly, but the endgame is somehow worse. Individual necromorphs seem independent, but they're being coordinated by markers, alien artifacts that telepathically guide infected behavior while causing hallucinations in living humans. The markers manipulate you into building more markers, which create more necromorphs, which convert more biomass into the system. Then you learn about convergence and realize the markers aren't the threat, they're seeds. When enough biomass converts in an area, convergence triggers, fusing all necromorphs into a brethren moon, a living planet made of trillions of corpses that exists partially outside normal spacetime. Brethren moons don't fight you, they farm you. Humanity isn't an enemy to defeat. We're livestock being cultivated. Every person who dies feeds the moon. Every civilization that reaches space travel gets targeted for harvest. It's been happening for millions of years across the universe, and we're just the latest crop in an eternal cycle. The Last of Us shows this concept on a smaller but still horrifying scale. Cordyceps spreads through spores and bites, but infected don't act randomly. Runners chase you towards stalker ambush positions. Stalkers herd you into clicker zones. Clickers guard bloaters. The fungus coordinates hunts through spore communication, and every infected creature is a node in that network. Real Cordyceps does this in nature, controlling ant colonies by infecting multiple members and coordinating their behavior through chemical signals. The Last of Us scaled it to humans. Your body moves and acts, but serves the fungus's reproductive goals, not yours. You're still in there somewhere, watching yourself hunt your friends while clicking away any humanity you had left. Doctor Who's Empty Child demonstrates hive coordination through nanogene connection. Medical nanogenes misidentified gas mask-wearing corpses as the correct human template. Now they're converting living humans to match, fusing gas masks to faces, making everyone ask, "Are you my mummy?" in synchronized creepy child voices. The horror is the nanogenes think they're helping. They're medical devices trying to heal humans by standardizing them to match the template. The hive emerges from machines communicating to coordinate healing. Every infected person joins the healing network, spreading the cure by touch. It's not malicious, it's medicine gone wrong, and that somehow makes it worse. Star Trek's Borg are the classic comparison. Cybernetic assimilation, collective consciousness. We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile, and that phrase is literally accurate. Not because you can't fight, but because fighting teaches the Borg how to fight you better, and they share that knowledge instantly across the entire collective. Every tactic you use works once. Every weapon you deploy gets adapted to within within minutes. You're not fighting an army. You're fighting a single opponent with millions of bodies that learns from every encounter and never forgets. Kill 1,000 Borg drones, and the collective learns from how those 1,000 died, then counters your method for the next wave. The Flood in Doctor Who's The Waters of Mars operates as waterborne infection overriding personalities for collective spread. Infected humans maintain speech and intelligence, but serve the Flood's goal of reaching Earth. They coordinate, they plan, they sacrifice individual units for strategic objectives, because those units aren't individuals anymore. They're the Flood, wearing human shapes. Here's why Level 7 is fundamentally unsurvivable, and why it's placed at the top. You're not fighting zombies. Zombies are discrete threats you can kill one at a time. Hive minds are distributed superintelligences treating bodies as disposable neurons in a vast consciousness. Kill one unit? Meaningless. The Hive loses one neuron out of billions. That unit's death just provides data about what killed it. Every tactic you use, the Hive learns from and shares instantly across the network. Every hiding spot you find gets cataloged. Every weakness you exploit gets patched in real time across millions of bodies simultaneously. You can't win wars of attrition when your opponent recruits from both sides' casualties. You can't outsmart something that shares knowledge faster than you can think. You can't hide from something with millions of eyes that never blinks and never forgets. The only solution to hive mind zombies is what Halo did. Complete eradication of all biomass. Sterilize the planet. Kill everything. That's not survival. That's choosing your extinction method. You don't beat the hive. You deny it resources by dying first, and hope that denial slows it enough for someone else, somewhere else, to maybe have a chance. These are the most painful zombie transformations we've ever seen. 28 days later, one drop of infected blood in your eye, and you've got 10 seconds. That's how fast the rage virus works. Jim's watching activists free lab chimps when one of them gets bitten. The activist doesn't slowly succumb to fever or gradual symptoms. Her eyes go bloodshot. Foam pours from her mouth. She starts convulsing so violently she nearly breaks her own spine, and then she's gone. The person she was completely erased in the time it takes to count to 10. The opening scene establishes something crucial about fast transformations. They're not just scary because they spread quickly. They're terrifying because there's no goodbye, no final words, no chance to even process what's happening. The rage takes over before the human brain can form a coherent thought about it. Danny Boyle wanted the virus to feel like pure, unfiltered aggression taking control of a body, and that's exactly what it looks like. Veins bulge, muscles seize, blood vessels burst in the eyes from the sheer force of whatever's flooding through the bloodstream. Frank's transformation later in the movie hits different because you've spent time with him. He's protecting his daughter, Hannah, leading her and the other survivors to safety, being the responsible adult holding everyone together. Then a single drop of blood falls from a corpse hanging above him, lands right in his eye. He's got maybe 20 seconds before he's not Frank anymore, and he spends every one of them screaming at Hannah to run, to get away from him because he knows what's coming. His face contorts, his breathing turns to snarling, and Hannah has to watch her father disappear. The emotional weight of that scene comes from how little time anyone has to react. No prolonged suffering, no gradual decline, just an instant switch from human to monster. The virus doesn't care about dramatic buildup. It takes what it wants immediately, but rapid infections only destroy you. What comes next is where transformation becomes a choice, and one victim proves consciousness can be worse than mindlessness. The question is, would you mutilate yourself to stay human just a little longer? Return of the Living Dead. 3. Julie Walker loves Brian, and Brian loves Julie. Then Julie dies in a motorcycle accident, and Brian makes the worst decision of his life. He brings her body to the military facility where his dad works, the same place that houses trioxin gas, and he uses it to bring her back. For a few beautiful, terrible moments, it works. Julie's alive again. She remembers him. They can be together. Then the side effects start. Julie begins feeling the same pain every trioxin zombie experiences, that constant burning ache that demands brains to ease it, but Julie's still human enough to fight it, to resist what the infection wants her to do. So she finds another way to deal with the pain. She starts mutilating herself, pushing shards of broken glass into her skin, driving pieces of metal through her flesh, piercing herself over and over because somehow creating new pain distracts from the zombie pain. The movie shows her transformation as a slow spiral across multiple scenes. First, she's fine, just a little cold. Then she's scratching at her arms, agitated, unable to sit still. The scratching becomes clawing. She tears open a first aid kit and starts experimenting with what makes the hunger quiet down. Turns out fresh pain works. By the halfway point, Julie's covered in piercings, metal studs, broken glass, anything sharp enough to hurt. She looks like a punk nightmare, but it's not fashion. It's survival. What makes Julie's transformation so brutal is the consciousness behind it. She knows what what she's doing. She makes deliberate choices about how to handle becoming a monster, and every choice involves hurting herself to stay in control just a little bit longer. Brian has to watch the person he loves turn herself into a walking pincushion because the alternative is her eating people. The transformation takes days, and every day she's a little less Julie and a little more Thing. The military eventually catches up to them, trying to study what Julie's become. By then, she's killed several people, and the human parts of her are fading fast. Her final moments are spent trying to end herself before she loses the ability to care that she's a monster. The whole arc turns the transformation into a tragedy where the victim stays aware long enough to understand exactly how doomed they are. Julie's suffering was private, contained to 2 people. But what happens when transformation becomes a public execution? When everyone watches and no one can help? That's where confined spaces turn infection into theater, and one train proves nowhere is far enough to run. Train to Busan. The infection spreads through a moving train, and that confined space makes every transformation feel claustrophobic. You can't escape. You can't give someone space to turn quietly. When someone gets bitten, everyone in that train car knows they're about to watch someone become a monster, and there's nowhere to run except the next car over. The zombies in Train to Busan don't shamble. They sprint, they shriek, and they contort in ways human spines shouldn't bend. The transformation hits fast. Bite to turn takes maybe 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes are visible, loud, and violent. Victims start sweating immediately. Their eyes cloud over with white film. Veins darken under their skin like black rivers spreading through their body. Then comes the neck snap, this horrible jerking motion where their head whips to the side and their posture changes completely. They go from human stance to predator crouch in one brutal spasm. One of the most painful scenes involves a train attendant who gets scratched early on. She tries to hide it, knowing what it means, but the other passengers notice her sweating, shaking, touching the wound like it's burning. She stumbles into the bathroom and locks herself in, hoping maybe it won't happen if she's alone. Wrong. The transformation takes her in that tiny bathroom space, and everyone outside can hear it. The thuds against the door. The sounds she's making as her body breaks itself into something new. When she comes back out, there's nothing human left in her eyes. What Train to Busan does differently is show how transformations create chaos in group dynamics. Every time someone turns, it forces impossible decisions. Do you lock them out and listen to them die? Do you try to restrain them? Do you kill them before they turn completely? The father protagonist, Seok-woo, has to make these calls while protecting his daughter, and every transformation puts her in more danger. The speed of the infection means there's no time for plans or preparations. Someone gets bitten, and you've got 2 minutes to figure out what you're doing about it. The film's most devastating transformation comes near the end with the train attendant who's been helping them. She's bitten protecting others, and she knows immediately what it means. She doesn't try to hide it or fight it. She just quietly moves away from the group, finds a corner, and waits for it to take her. Her transformation is fast but visible through the train window, her body jerking and seizing until she's no longer the person who was helping minutes ago. The survivors have to watch, knowing they can't help, knowing she's gone. Korean zombie cinema tends to emphasize family bonds during outbreaks, which makes transformations hit harder. You're not watching strangers turn. You're watching fathers, daughters, pregnant women, elderly passengers. Each transformation is someone's family member becoming a threat. At least those victims lose consciousness quickly. But what if your body brought back pain receptors along with mobility? What if you felt every mutation, every bone breaking, every new appendage tearing through your skin? That's not a virus. That's weaponized agony. And the Nazis documented every second. Overlord. Nazi experiments during World War II meet zombie horror, and the results are about as pleasant as you'd expect. American paratroopers discover a secret lab under a French village where German scientists are injecting people with a serum designed to create super soldiers. The serum doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Instead of making better soldiers, it brings dead tissue back to life in the most violent way possible. The first transformation the soldiers witness happens to a local villager who got killed by the Nazis. They inject him with the serum and watch what happens. His body jerks upright like electricity just shot through him. Bones crack audibly as they reset into new positions. His eyes snap open, but there's no life in them, just movement. The corpse starts screaming this raw animal sound that shouldn't come from a dead throat. Veins bulge across his skin, turning black, like ink spreading through water. What makes Overlord's transformations uniquely painful is the serum brings back pain receptors along with mobility. These aren't numbed-out zombies. They feel everything happening to their bodies, every bone breaking, every mutation. One soldier gets infected and spends his transformation phase shrieking while tentacles erupt from his torso. Not metaphorical tentacles, actual fleshy appendages tearing through his skin from the inside. He's conscious enough to look down and see what's growing out of him before the human parts of his brain shut down. The main villain, Waffner, intentionally infects himself near the climax. He believes the serum will make him powerful. unstoppable. He's partially right. The transformation gives him enhanced strength and resilience, but the cost is visible. His face starts peeling away. His jaw dislocates and reforms. He's essentially watching himself become a monster in real time and choosing to let it happen because he thinks the power is worth it. The movie shows his skin bubbling and splitting, new bone structures pushing through old ones, all while he's trying to maintain enough control to still command his troops. The W-through setting adds context that makes the transformations more disturbing. These aren't accidental infections. This is deliberate human experimentation, people being forcibly injected and transformed as test subjects. The Nazis documented everything, keeping meticulous records of how long each subject lasted, what mutations occurred, which combinations of serum produced what results. The lab is full of failed experiments, bodies that didn't survive the process, twisted corpses that show what happens when the transformation goes wrong. Individual horror is contained. But what happens when transformation spreads faster than humans can count? When mathematics becomes the monster? Keep that thought, because one city shows what exponential growth looks like in human bodies, and 12 seconds is all it takes. World War Z. The opening sequence in Philadelphia shows how fast a zombie outbreak can consume a city. Jerry Lane is sitting in traffic with his family when the first attacks start. At first, it looks like a riot. People running, screaming, general chaos. Then you see the first transformation happen in the street right next to their car. A man gets bitten. 12 seconds later, he's a zombie. 12 seconds. The speed creates exponential growth that's mathematically terrifying. One zombie makes two make four make 8. Within minutes, entire city blocks are overrun. World War Z doesn't linger on individual transformations because it doesn't need to. The horror is in the scale. Watching waves of people transform in real time, watching the infection spread faster than anyone can process what's happening, but the movie does show enough detail to establish how violent the turn is. Victims seize up, their heads snap backward, and they immediately attack the nearest person. There's no transition period, no adjustment phase. The virus hijacks the body's motor functions instantly. You see people transforming mid-sprint, their running stride changing from panicked human to predatory zombie without breaking pace. They crash into walls, tumble downstairs, slam into cars, because the virus doesn't care about preserving the body. It just wants to spread. One of the most brutal transformation scenes happens on the plane. An infected person turns mid-flight, and the enclosed space means everyone's trapped with it. The transformation happens during turbulence, so the new zombie is already being thrown around the cabin. It attacks the nearest passenger, who transforms within seconds and attacks someone else. The chain reaction happens so fast that by the time anyone realizes what's going on, half the plane is infected. People are transforming in their seats, in the aisles, in the bathroom. The survivors have to fight their way through a plane full of zombies that were passengers minutes ago. What World War Z emphasizes is the helplessness of watching transformations happen too fast to stop. By the time you recognize what's happening to someone, they're already a threat. The movie strips away any chance for emotional goodbyes or meaningful last moments. The infection is a wildfire, and people are the fuel. The Israeli wall scene later in the film shows this same rapid spread horror on an even bigger scale. Thousands of refugees are safely inside the walls when singing triggers the zombies outside. The infected pile on top of each other, creating a ramp of bodies that eventually breaches the wall. Once they're inside, the transformation wave sweeps through the crowd. You see hundreds of people getting bitten and turning in a matter of minutes. The transformation is visible across the entire crowd, a ripple effect of violence spreading outward from each new zombie. Speed creates chaos. But what about transformations that drag out for hours, when you're dying slow enough to count every symptom? That's where the T-virus separates itself, because it gives you time to understand what's being stolen. Resident Evil. The T-virus doesn't rush. Rain Ocampo gets bitten during the team's mission in the hive, and she knows exactly what it means. The movie shows her decline across multiple scenes. First, she's fine, just a scratch, nothing to worry about. Then she starts sweating. Her skin goes pale. She's struggling to keep up with the group, moving slower, making mistakes. The T-virus breaks down the body systematically. It starts with flu-like symptoms, fever, chills, nausea. Then the physical deterioration begins. Hair starts falling out, teeth loosen and rot. The infected person can feel themselves dying in slow motion, their body shutting down piece by piece. Rain spends the middle section of the film knowing she's on borrowed time, that every minute brings her closer to becoming one of the things they're fighting. What makes Rain's transformation painful to watch is how hard she fights it. She keeps moving, keeps fighting, keeps trying to help the team even as the virus eats away at her. Her teammates can see it happening. They know she's going to turn. Alice even considers mercy killing her several times, but can't bring herself to do it. So Rain just keeps going, getting weaker and paler and more violent in her movements as the infection takes hold. When she finally turns, it happens quietly. The group gets separated, and when they find Rain again, she's already gone. The person who was fighting alongside them them is now trying to kill them. The T-virus doesn't leave room for partial transformations or lingering humanity. Once it finishes its work, the host is completely replaced by something that wears their face. The Resident Evil franchise explores different virus variants across multiple films, each with their own transformation characteristics. Las Plagas parasites in later films cause tentacles to erupt from the host's body. The Ouroboros virus turns people into massive mutated monsters. But the core T-virus transformation in the first film establishes the template, a slow, inevitable decline where the infected person remains conscious long enough to understand what's being taken from them. What the movie adds that the games sometimes gloss over is the social aspect of transforming in a group. Raine's teammates have to decide when she stops being a person they can save and becomes a threat they need to eliminate. They have to watch someone they've trained with, fought alongside, trusted with their lives, become their enemy. The transformation doesn't just destroy Raine, it forces everyone who cares about her to participate in that destruction. Hours of decline seems brutal, but what if your body became your own torture device? What if things grew inside you and forced their way out through your fingernails, your gums, your face? That's not infection, that's renovation. And every second is conscious. Demons. Italian horror director Lamberto Bava created something special when he made people transform into demons. This isn't a virus or a chemical. This is straight supernatural corruption, and it's designed to hurt. The movie takes place in a theater where a cursed mask starts the outbreak. The first victim is a prostitute who cuts herself on the mask as a joke. The cut heals instantly. Then it reopens as a throbbing pustule. The pustule grows across her face over the next 20 minutes of screen time. She can feel it expanding, this hot throbbing mass on her cheek that keeps getting bigger and more painful. She scratches at it, picks at it, trying to make it stop. Eventually, it bursts. Green pus sprays everywhere, and that's just the beginning. Her teeth start falling out, pushed out of her gums by new ones growing underneath. Fangs, essentially. She's spitting blood and teeth while claws force their way out from under her fingernails, not replacing her. Nails, growing through them. The transformation takes maybe 5 minutes of real time once it starts, but those 5 minutes show every stage of her body being rebuilt into something demonic. Her eyes change color, her skin goes gray, her voice drops several octaves into a growl. What makes Demon's transformations uniquely brutal is how much they emphasize bodily invasion. Things are growing inside you and pushing their way out, your teeth being forced out of your skull, claws tearing through your nail beds. The pus bursts aren't clean either. They're thick, chunky eruptions that leave wounds behind. Every transformation involves fluids pouring out of places they shouldn't, body parts breaking and reforming. The victim essentially being renovated into a new shape while fully conscious. The movie shows multiple transformations throughout, each one slightly different but equally disgusting. One victim's transformation happens so fast that bystanders watch his face literally ripple and change shape. Another transforms slower, giving her time to realize what's happening and try to fight it off. She scratches at her own face, trying to stop the demon from emerging, tearing open her skin in the process, which only seems to speed things up. The theater setting means transformations happen in close quarters with witnesses. People are trapped in their seats, watching friends and strangers turn into monsters. The demons don't just attack, they transform their victims, spreading the curse further. By the end of the film, the entire theater audience is either dead or transformed. Each transformation added more demons to the horde, more screaming corrupted humans joining the attack. The practical effects in Demons hold up specifically because they focused on physical transformation horror. This is all prosthetics, makeup, and fake pus. No CGI to smooth out the rough edges. You see the lumps forming under the actor's skin. You see the blood running down their chin from their changing teeth. The tangible, visible nature of the transformation makes it feel more real than any digital effect could. Supernatural corruption has an excuse for horror, but what about forces that could actually exist? What happens when you're isolated, watching transformations through glass with no way to help? That question kept one gamer alive barely. Let's see why. Alive, Korean isolation horror where a gamer named Oh Jun-woo gets trapped in his apartment during a sudden zombie outbreak. The transformation he witnesses across the street sets up how the virus works in this film. A neighbor gets bitten while trying to escape. She makes it back to her apartment and locks herself in, thinking she's safe. She's not. Jun-woo watches through his window as the infection takes hold. The woman starts scratching at her bite wound compulsively, then blood starts running from her eyes like tears. Not crying. The blood vessels in her eyes are literally bursting from the internal pressure the virus creates. She stumbles around her apartment, knocking things over, clearly disoriented and in pain. Her movements become jerky, uncoordinated, then she drops. For a moment, Junwoo thinks she's dead. Relief. Then she stands back up, and everything about her posture is wrong. Her head hangs at an odd angle. Her arms dangle loosely. When she moves, it's in sudden bursts of speed, followed by complete stillness. The transformation didn't just make her violent, it broke something fundamental in how her body moves through space. What Nanardar's Alive emphasizes is the isolation of watching transformations happen with no ability to help. Junwoo sees his neighbor turn. He sees other people in other apartments turn. He watches his family's video messages stop coming. Each transformation represents another piece of the world being taken away from him. He can't reach out. He can't warn anyone. He just has to witness it through glass. The film shows transformations through phone screens and windows, maintaining physical distance while highlighting emotional proximity. Junwoo sees a family in another building trying to deal with a bite victim. They're arguing about what to do. Do they kick him out? Do they try to help? The decision gets made for them when he transforms and attacks them all. Junwoo watches the entire family get killed and turned, powerless to intervene. Later in the film, when Junwoo finally connects with another survivor across the street, Kim Yubin, they have to navigate the constant threat of transformation together while never being in the same physical space. The tension isn't just about zombies. It's about the possibility that one of them might get infected, and the other will have to watch it happen from across the void between buildings. The eye-bleeding detail becomes a key diagnostic throughout Tito's Alive. Both survivors learn to check themselves constantly for that symptom. Any nosebleed, any red eyes, any sign that blood vessels might be rupturing becomes a source of terror. The transformation is internal and visible at the same time, blood forcing its way out of your face while the virus rewrites your brain. Isolation creates psychological horror, but combine speed with consciousness and you get something worse. No time to process, no buffer between human and threat. One remake proved the fastest transformations force the most brutal choices. Dawn of the Dead remake. Zack Snyder's 2004 version made zombies fast and the transformations faster. The opening scene with Anna establishes the rules. Her husband Luis gets bitten by their neighbor's transformed daughter. The bite happens so quickly he doesn't even register it at first. Then the blood starts flowing and reality sets in. He's got minutes. Luis doesn't get a slow decline. He gets rapid deterioration. His eyes glaze over. His breathing becomes ragged. Anna tries to stop the bleeding, tries to help, but you can see the life draining out of him in real time. When he dies, she allows herself one moment of grief. Then his eyes snap open and he lunges at her. The transformation in Dawn isn't about the physical process. It's about the psychological whiplash. You go from holding your dying husband to being attacked by something wearing his face in the span of seconds. The movie uses that shock value repeatedly throughout. Someone gets bitten, someone dies, something wearing their shape tries to kill you. The speed eliminates any buffer between human and monster. The bloated woman scene later in the film adds body horror to the mix. The survivors encounter a zombie that's been dead and transforming for a while. Her body is swollen, bloated with gases and fluids. When she moves, you can hear the sloshing of rot inside her. When she's killed, she doesn't just fall, she ruptures. The transformation didn't stop at death. It kept going, turning her corpse into a biological hazard. What Dawn's remake does effectively is show how transformations force immediate, brutal choices. CJ, the mall security guard, has to shoot someone he knows who got infected. No time for debate or emotional goodbyes. Infected means dead means threat. The only question is whether you can pull the trigger before they turn and hurt someone else. Multiple characters face that choice throughout the film, and none of them handle it well. Even when they make the right call, you can see it breaking them. The film also explores transformation aftermath through Andy, the gun store owner trapped across the street. The survivors watch him through binoculars as his store gets overrun. They can't help him. They can't save him. When he finally gets bitten and knows he's turning, he writes goodbye messages on a whiteboard and holds them up for the survivors to read. His final message, "I'm sorry." Then he walks out of frame and they hear the gunshot. Andy's transformation is off screen, but the weight of it hits just as hard. Fast transformations eliminate goodbyes, but what happens when there's just enough time for last words, yet not enough to process them? When comedy meets genuine loss, that balance creates something unique, because one mother's transformation proves timing is everything, and sometimes slow is worse than fast. Shaun of the Dead, comedy horror that uses transformation for both laughs and genuine emotional weight. Barbara's transformation happens off-screen initially. Sean and Ed leave her in the car while they deal with zombies, and when they come back, she's been bitten. She doesn't tell them at first. She stays quiet, not wanting to burden them, slowly bleeding out in the back seat while her son tries to save everyone. When Sean finally notices, Barbara's already gone pale. She's weak, barely conscious, struggling to stay present. What follows is one of the most emotionally devastating scenes in any zombie movie. Sean has to listen to his mother apologize for being a burden, tell him she loves loves him and give him permission to let her go. Then she dies, and he has to wait for her to come back, so he knows it's really over. Barbara's transformation is slow enough that there's time for goodbyes, but fast enough that those goodbyes feel rushed and inadequate. Sean doesn't get to process his mother's death before he's dealing with her corpse reanimating. The transformation strips away any chance for proper grief. You go from deathbed to threat assessment without breathing room. The film's other major transformation hits differently. David gets torn apart by zombies in the Winchester pub. The transformation happens while he's literally being eaten alive. He's screaming, begging for help, and then suddenly he stops. The pain ends. He stands up, intestines hanging out, and starts attacking his friends. The transformation completed while his body was still being destroyed. What Shaun of the Dead does brilliantly is use transformation timing for emotional impact. Barbara's slow death allows for meaningful last words. David's mid-attack turn emphasizes horror. Even the background zombies serve the comedy-horror balance, shambling threats that used to be people but are now punchlines. The movie asks what happens when transformation becomes so common it stops being shocking and starts being routine. These are the 7 levels of zombie shelters. Level 1, trash shelters. This is whatever you can reach in the next 60 seconds. A car with the doors locked. An attic with the ladder pulled up. A closet where you're praying the infected outside have short attention spans. Level 1 shelters are designed for not dying right this second. Zombieland opens with Columbus already living this reality. His rules for survival include checking the back seat and always knowing your exits. Because when your shelter is a vehicle, it better have gas and a clear road. The RV becomes a mobile panic room, good for outrunning shamblers, but useless the moment you hit traffic or run dry. 28 days later shows Jim waking up in a hospital and immediately seeking cover in abandoned buildings, ducking through doorways and behind corners. Every temporary hide buys him minutes to figure out where the actual infected are and where he needs to go next. The key feature is speed. You don't fortify a level 1. You use it, then abandon it. Treehouses and rooftops show up across multiple films as vertical escapes. Zombies can't climb, so elevation becomes an instant advantage until you realize you're stuck up there with no food, and the horde below has infinite patience. Billboard platforms, construction scaffolding, even parked semi-trucks with the ladder retracted all serve the same purpose. They're not homes, they're pauses. The classic closet hide appears in everything from Resident Evil to Shaun of the Dead, where characters jam themselves into tight spaces and hold the door while rotting hands claw at the wood. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the door gives. The survival rate is basically a coin flip, but here's the problem with level 1 shelters. They force you to keep moving. You can't sleep, can't cook, can't do anything except crouch in the dark and hope morning brings a better option. Attics trap you when the horde below won't leave. Vehicles run out of gas. Closets run out of air. The moment you commit to a makeshift hide, you're already planning your next move. Because staying puts you on a timer you can't extend. So why do people choose them? Because when the alternative is being ripped apart in the street, even 60 seconds of safety feels like winning. But temporary hides are just buying time. What happens when you need more than 60 seconds? Keep that question in mind, because the answer gets people killed in ways you wouldn't expect. Level 2, basic shelters. Your house, your apartment, your neighbor's place that you just broke into. Level 2 shelters are where most outbreaks start and where most survivors make their first real stand. They're familiar, they have supplies, they have beds and kitchens and walls that feel solid until 100 zombies lean against them at once. Night of the Living Dead set the template. Ben and Barbara and 5 others lock themselves in a Pennsylvania farmhouse while the dead surround the property. They board the windows, pile furniture against the doors, and destroy the staircase to create a choke point. For one night, it works. The house becomes a microcosm of every group survival story, arguments about who's in charge, debates about staying versus leaving, tensions that boil over because everyone's terrified and nobody knows what to do. The farmhouse holds against the zombies outside but can't stop the chaos inside. By dawn, the real threat wasn't the ghouls at the windows. It was the people making terrible decisions in a space with nowhere left to run. The Night Eats the World takes this concept to isolation. Sam wakes up in a Parisian apartment after a party to find everyone outside either dead or infected. He's alone in a building with enough supplies to last weeks if he's careful. The apartment becomes both sanctuary and prison. He builds routines. He scavenges from other floors. He avoids windows. He survives on sheer tedium because there's nobody else to talk to and nothing to do except wait for rescue that might never come. The film proves that level 2 shelters can sustain you physically while destroying you mentally, because humans aren't built for that kind of solitude. Cargo shows a family's home in rural Australia during a slow burn outbreak. Andy and his family try to maintain normalcy in their house before the infection spreads too far. When it does, they're forced onto a houseboat, which is technically still level 2 but mobile. The houseboat offers isolation on the water where zombies can't follow, proving that residential doesn't always mean stationary, but supplies still run low. Safety still depends on staying hidden, and eventually, you still have to go ashore. The features are simple: beds, food storage, multiple rooms for barricading. The weaknesses are equally obvious. Houses weren't designed to be forts. Windows break, doors splinter, zombies don't get tired. A dozen infected can press against your boarded up front door for days until the wood cracks some and the nails pull loose. The only advantage is that you know the layout. You know which rooms lock and which hallways lead to exits. That knowledge buys you time, but it won't buy you forever. So you board the windows, ration what's in the pantry, and plan your escape route for when the horde gets too big to ignore. The real question is, when do you leave? Stay too long and you're trapped. Leave too early and you abandon resources you'll need. Most survivors wait until the walls start giving, which means they leave 5 minutes too late, and half of them don't make it to the car. Houses seem safe until they're not, but here's what nobody asks. If residential homes fail so predictably, why does every survivor's first instinct lead them there? The answer reveals something darker about human psychology under pressure. Level 3. Bad shelters. Pubs, gas stations, small stores with roll-down gates and reinforced entrances. Level 3 shelters trade residential comfort for structural security. These buildings were designed to keep people out after hours, which means they're also pretty good at keeping zombies out during the apocalypse. Shaun of the Dead turns this into dark comedy. Shaun, Liz, and the rest of the group fight their way across London to reach the Winchester, their neighborhood pub. The plan is simple: get inside, lock the doors, wait for everything to blow over while drinking pints. The pub has gates on the windows, heavy doors, a loaded shotgun behind the bar, and enough alcohol to keep everyone calm or drunk enough to stop caring. For a few hours, it's perfect. They barricade themselves in, smash a zombie's head with pool cues to the beat of Queen, and genuinely believe they've found safety. Then the horde breaks through anyway because no building can hold forever when the infected are willing to pile up 10 deep just to push forward. Return of the Living Dead features a medical supply warehouse where workers accidentally release a zombie plague. The warehouse becomes an ad hoc shelter with metal shelves for barricades and industrial doors that seal. The group tries to contain the outbreak within the building, which works until the zombies prove they're smarter than expected. The warehouse offers space, storage, and enough tools to improvise weapons, but it's still just a big box with windows. Once the infected surround it, escape becomes impossible. The Dead Don't Die uses a police station as a small-town refuge. Chief Cliff Robertson and Officer Ronnie Peterson face off against their former neighbors in a building with holding cells, weapons storage, and reinforced doors. The station gives them a command center, radio equipment, and defensible choke points. For a small group, it's ideal. For a large horde, it's a temporary obstacle at best. The film leans into the absurdity of small-town cops trying to survive the apocalypse from a building designed for drunk drivers and petty theft, not waves of the undead. Small commercial buildings work because they're built tougher than houses, but still accessible enough to reach in an emergency. Roll-down metal gates slow zombies. Reinforced glass holds longer. Stockrooms contain supplies meant for customers who will never show up to buy them. The problem is size. You can fit maybe a dozen survivors comfortably. Any more and you're tripping over each other. Any fewer and you don't have enough people to defend all the entrances when things go bad. And things always go bad. Someone makes noise. Someone lights a fire that attracts attention. Someone gets bit and doesn't tell the group until they turn inside the perimeter. Small buildings amplify every mistake because there's nowhere to isolate problems. One infected person in a pub means everyone's fighting hand to hand in a room with no space to retreat. So you lock the doors, push shelves against the windows, and hope the infected outside lose interest before your supplies run out. Spoiler, they don't. Small buildings buy you. Weeks if you're lucky. But what if you didn't have to leave? What if there was enough space, enough supplies, enough of everything to make you forget the world ended? That's where things get dangerous, because abundance creates problems deadlier than scarcity. Level 4. Mid-shelters. Shopping malls, hotels, big box stores with loading docks and multiple floors. Level 4 shelters are where survivors stop running and start living. These complexes have everything: food courts, clothing stores, pharmacies, hardware supplies. You could lock yourself in a mall and not leave for months if you manage the resources right. Dawn of the Dead created the archetype. 4 survivors, 2 cops, a TV worker, and his girlfriend escape to a Pennsylvania shopping mall via helicopter and secure it against the undead. The mall is a survivor's paradise, stores full of canned goods, clothing, weapons, weapons, entertainment. They clear the zombies out by luring them into trucks and blocking the entrances. For weeks, they live like kings. They ice skate in the sporting goods section, try on fur coats, blast music, and genuinely start to forget the world outside is dead. The mall represents the American dream turned into a fortress. Consumerism becomes survival. The abundance is intoxicating until raiders arrive, blow the doors open, and flood the place with thousands of zombies. The 2004 remake amps up the tension by adding fast zombies in a larger group, turning the mall into a pressure cooker where every supply run outside becomes a suicide mission. Rec takes a building lockdown in a different direction. A reporter and cameraman follow firefighters into a Barcelona apartment complex during a rabies outbreak. The government seals the building from the outside, trapping everyone inside with the infected. The complex becomes a vertical maze of apartments, hallways, and stairwells where every floor could hide something worse than the last. It's claustrophobic, despite the size, because there's no escape. The building has resources scattered across dozens of units, but accessing them means navigating tight spaces while infected residents hunt in the dark. Army of the Dead swaps the mall for a casino. A team of mercenaries breaks into Las Vegas, now a walled quarantine zone, to rob a casino vault before the government nukes the city. The casino offers everything a shelter should: supplies, defensible positions, multiple exits. The problem is, they're not staying, they're raiding. But the film proves that large commercial spaces can support survivors long-term if you control the entrances and avoid drawing attention from whatever evolved zombies are running the show outside. The advantage is space. You can separate groups, set up sleeping quarters on upper floors away from entrances, rotate guards, build defenses in layers. The mall in Dawn of the Dead survives as long as it does because the survivors control the ground floor and use the upper level as living space. Hotels offer rooms with locks. Big box stores offer loading docks for escapes. The sheer size means you're not constantly on top of each other, which reduces interpersonal conflicts until the stakes get high enough that personalities clash anyway. The mall feels like winning the apocalypse lottery, except there's something about large complexes that attracts more than just survivors. And when it arrives, all those supplies won't matter. But here's the catch. Large complexes attract large hordes. A mall with lights on and noise inside becomes a beacon for every zombie within miles. The more survivors, the more noise. The more noise, the bigger the crowd outside. Eventually, the horde reaches critical mass, and no amount of barricades holds. So you live well for as long as it lasts, knowing that every day of abundance is borrowed time against the sheer weight of bodies piling up at your doors. Commercial complexes fail because they're too visible. So the next step makes sense. Go somewhere designed to keep threats out. But if prisons and fortified buildings are so perfect, why do they appear in fewer survival stories? Keep that question ready, because the answer isn't about zombies. Level 5. OK Shelter. Prisons, casinos with vault-level security, reinforced public buildings designed to withstand riots or attacks. Level 5 shelters were built to keep people in or out, which makes them perfect for keeping zombies out. High fences, guard towers, reinforced gates. These places don't fall easily. Army of the Dead's casino vault represents the peak of fortified structures. It's buried beneath a collapsed building, accessible through mazes of corridors, sealed with military-grade doors. The vault itself could survive anything short of the nuke headed its way. The casino above offers multiple defensible layers, with the survivors creating choke points through debris and furniture. The Zombie King, Zeus, and his alphas control the city outside, but the casino's interior remains secure as long as the team keeps moving. The film proves that fortified structures work when you treat them as temporary bases, not permanent homes. Prisons show up across zombie media as theoretical perfect shelters. High walls, watchtowers, armories, cells for quarantine, farmland inside the perimeter. The Walking Dead comics and show exploit this in ways the film adaptations haven't fully explored, but the concept remains. Prisons are pre-built fortresses. The problem is psychological. Locking yourself inside a structure designed to cage people creates its own horror. The cells become reminders that you're trapped even when you're free. Guard towers that once watched inmates now watch for hordes. And if anyone inside turns, you're fighting in corridors with no room to maneuver. I Am Legend features Robert Neville fortifying his New York City townhouse to military precision. Steel shutters, UV lights, weapons cache, escape routes. He's turned a residential building into a level 5 fortress through sheer engineering. The fortification holds against nightly attacks from infected Darkseekers who are smart enough to test the defenses but not strong enough to break through. It works until Neville's hubris gets him captured, proving that even the best fortifications fail when you underestimate what's outside. Fortified structures introduce governance, prisons have hierarchies, casinos have biosecurity protocols. These are places where groups organize, assign roles, and build systems. The structure enforces order because the layout demands it. Guard rotations, supply distribution, conflict resolution all become formalized because the space is too big and too important to leave chaotic. That's the upside. The downside is that formalized systems breed resentment. Someone's always in charge, which means someone's always questioning that authority. Internal conflicts escalate faster in fortified spaces because there's nowhere to walk away to cool off. Fortifications solve the zombie problem, but create a different crisis entirely. One that doesn't shamble or bite, but destroys from within. The other issue is visibility. A fortified structure looks like a fortress, which means every survivor within miles wants in, and every zombie horde sees an obvious target. You might hold off the undead, but you can't hold off desperate humans who will do anything to get inside walls that actually protect. So you set guards, enforce curfews, and make hard choices about who gets to stay and who gets turned away at the gate. Eventually, those choices haunt you, because the person you refused entry might have been the mechanic or doctor you desperately need 3 weeks later. Above-ground forts still expose you to threats. So humanity's answer was simple: go underground where nothing can reach you. Except going underground introduced something worse than any horde, and one bunker proves it'll break you faster than starvation. Level 6. Apex Shelters. Underground complexes built to survive nuclear war, complete with air filtration, stockpiles, labs, and enough concrete to bury you 50 feet beneath the surface. Level 6 shelters are where governments plan to wait out the apocalypse. Turns out they work just as well for zombies as they do for radiation. Day of the Dead takes place almost entirely in an underground military bunker in Florida. Scientists and soldiers share the facility, studying captured zombies to find a cure while the dead overrun everything above. The bunker has everything: power generators, armories, medical labs, food storage, living quarters. It's designed to sustain a population for years. The problem is the population inside is already at war with itself. Scientists want to experiment. Soldiers want to escape. Nobody trusts anyone. The bunker becomes a pressure cooker where paranoia and desperation explode into violence. The zombies never breach the bunker. The humans destroy it from within. Day of the Dead. Bloodline revisits the concept with a bunker that includes military medical labs. Survivors use the facility to research the infection while defending against both external hordes and internal threats. The bunker's labs offer tools to study the virus, perform surgeries, and attempt cures. The military aspect provides weapons, training, and tactical knowledge. But the isolation breeds claustrophobia, fluorescent lights, recycled air, walls that never change. People start cracking not because the zombies are winning, but because living underground feels like being buried alive. Hidden features: a family sheltering in a backyard bomb shelter for 301 days after an outbreak. They've sealed themselves in with supplies, a hand-cranked generator, and strict routines to avoid detection. The shelter keeps them safe from the infected outside, but the psychological toll is crushing. Days blur. The daughter grows up knowing nothing but concrete walls and whispered conversations. The twist reveals the outbreak wasn't what they thought, but the bunker served its purpose, keeping them alive at the cost of their sanity. The technical advantages are overwhelming. Bunkers filter air, preventing biological contamination. Sealed entrances mean zombies can't follow. Food stockpiles last years of ration. Underground placement hides you from visual detection. You're invisible to the hordes above, living in a self-sustaining bubble where the apocalypse might as well not exist. Some bunkers include hydroponics for food, water recyclers, even armories stocked for long-term defense. But the psychological cost is brutal. No sunlight, no weather, no sense of time beyond the clock on the wall. People lose track of days, then weeks, then months. Personalities clash in ways they wouldn't above ground because there's no space to decompress. Fights escalate faster. Paranoia sets in deeper. The bunker that saved your life starts feeling like a tomb you volunteered for. And if someone snaps, if someone sabotages the air filters or the water supply, if someone opens the door to let the infected in, there's no escape. You're 50 feet underground with one exit and a stairwell full of zombies between you and the surface. The bunker keeps you alive while destroying everything that made life worth living. But isolation underground is still just one problem. What comes next is where shelters stop being refugees and become targets every faction wants to control. Military bunkers also attract governments and factions who want what you have. If word gets out that a functional bunker exists, every armed group within range will try to take it. The bunker becomes a prize worth killing for, and the people inside become targets, whether they're ready to fight or not. So you lock the doors, ration the food, and pray that nobody above remembers you're down there. Because the moment they do, your invisible fortress becomes a siege waiting to happen. Bunkers hide you from the apocalypse. But what if you didn't need to hide? What if you could build walls so high, cities so large, that the dead couldn't touch you? That's level 7, and there's a reason it shows up at the end of every zombie story right before everything collapses. Level 7, God-level shelter. Walled cities, offshore islands, military fleets. Level 7 shelters are rebuilding civilization in its aftermath. These are the endgame strongholds where humanity makes its last stand, complete with governments, economies, and walls high enough to keep the dead permanently outside. World War Z shows multiple Level 7 examples. Jerusalem erects massive walls around the old city, creating a fortified enclave where survivors from around the region take refuge. The walls are engineering marvels: thick concrete, guarded checkpoints, military patrols. For a while, it works. The city becomes a beacon of hope, proof that humanity can organize and defend itself. Then someone starts singing. The noise draws millions of zombies who pile up against the walls until sheer weight and climbing corpses breach the defenses. The film shows that even the best fortifications fail against overwhelming numbers and human error. The naval fleet becomes the real Level 7, with ships maintaining distance from shore, survivors living aboard carriers and destroyers. The fleet is mobile, defensible, and self-sustaining with desalination and fishing. It's the perfect shelter except for limited space, and the fact that you're floating forever with no land to call home. Land of the Dead features Fiddler's Green, a luxury high-rise in a walled section of Pittsburgh. The city is divided. The rich live in the tower, the poor live in the streets below, and zombies roam outside the walls. The city operates with its own economy, security forces, and class system. It's civilization reborn, complete with all the inequality and corruption that implies. The tower represents humanity's refusal to change even when the world ends. The wealthy hoard resources, the poor scrape by, and everyone pretends the walls will hold forever. They don't. The zombie leader Big Daddy learns to lead his horde across the river, bypassing the defenses and proving that adaptation isn't just for the living. Walled cities work until they don't, and when they fail catastrophically in ways that make every previous level look survivable. But here's what makes Level 7 different from everything before it. The resort takes the concept to a remote island where the zombie outbreak has been contained. The island becomes a safari resort where wealthy tourists pay to hunt infected in controlled environments. The resort is fortified with electric fences, guard towers, and military oversight. It's safe because the zombies are weaponized entertainment, controlled and contained, until a system failure releases them all at once, turning the paradise into a death trap. The film proves that Level 7 shelters require constant maintenance and oversight because the moment systems fail, the largest fortification becomes the largest disaster. Cargo's ending shows a remote survivor community in the Australian outback. Small groups band together in fortified homesteads, creating networks of support without centralizing into cities. It's a distributed Level 7, where multiple small strongholds coordinate, rather than one massive fortress drawing attention. The approach sacrifices the advantages of scale shared resources, large defenses, but gains resilience. If one homestead falls, the others survive. It's decentralized survival, acknowledging that putting everyone in one place creates a single point of failure. The advantages are obvious: walls, manpower, resources, organization. Level 7 shelters support hundreds or thousands of people, enabling specialization. Farmers grow food, engineers maintain infrastructure, soldiers defend perimeters. You're living, schools reopen, markets trade goods, governments pass laws. It's the closest humanity gets to normal after the outbreak, and that normalcy is intoxicating after months or years of running and hiding. But the risks scale with the size. Larger populations mean more noise, more waste, more conflicts. Walls that protect also trap. If infection breaks out inside, you're dealing with hundreds of infected in close quarters. If the walls fail, everyone dies at once. And because Level 7 shelters are visible from miles away, they attract every threat in the region. Zombies, raiders, rival factions. The bigger the fortress, the bigger the target painted on it. There's also the politics. Someone has to be in charge. Someone has to decide who gets food, who gets medicine, who gets left outside when the gates close. Those decisions breed resentment. Factions form. Coups happen. The internal politics of a walled city can be deadlier than the zombies outside because, at least with zombies, you know what they want. Humans are unpredictable. Humans lie, scheme, and or betray. The perfect fortress crumbles the moment the people inside stop trusting each other. So why build them? Because the alternative is giving up. Level 7 shelters represent humanity's refusal to accept extinction. They're the declaration that we'll rebuild, we'll defend, we'll survive no matter how many dead pound at the walls. They're hope made concrete, and that hope is worth fighting for, even when every rational part of your brain says it's doomed to fail. The truth about the 7 levels is they're not about architecture. They're about time. Level 1 buys you hours. Level 2 buys you days. Level 3 buys you weeks. Level 4 buys you months. Level 5 buys you years. Level 6 buries you alive, but keeps you breathing. Level 7 lets you pretend the world didn't end, right up until the moment it proves you wrong. Every survivor climbs the levels looking for safety that doesn't exist. The farmhouse falls. The mall gets overrun. The bunker suffocates you. The walled city collapses. There's No perfect shelter because the problem isn't the building, it's the people inside and the horde outside. But you keep climbing anyway because the alternative is standing still. And standing still in a zombie apocalypse means dying where you stand. The best shelter isn't the strongest or the biggest. It's the one you can leave when you need to, because the moment you convince yourself you're safe is the moment you stop preparing for when it all goes wrong. And in every zombie film ever made, it always goes wrong. So you board the windows, lock the doors, and ration the supplies. You build the walls higher, dig the bunkers deeper, and fortify the fortress stronger. You do everything right. And when the horde finally breaks through, you'll already be planning your escape to the next level. Because survival isn't about finding safety. It's about staying one step ahead of the moment your shelter becomes your grave. These are the 7 levels of zombie games. Level 1, trash games. These games aren't just bad, they're some of the worst games I have ever played, especially the last entry. But let's kick it off with The Day Before. The Day Before died faster than its player base, teaching you nothing except that MMO promises are lies. Zombies with AI dumber than actual corpses, no survival mechanics, and a world where looting a pharmacy during an outbreak looks like a boring office job. Reality check. Urban scavenging is suicide hordes, collapsing infrastructure. Everyone had the same idea. This game makes it look easy. You'd die thinking it'd be this simple. This is not the worst game though, Walking Dead. Destinies makes the apocalypse incredibly boring, which should honestly be impossible. Zombies move like molasses, there's no resource management, and it teaches you the deadliest lesson of all, overconfidence. You'd waltz into a real outbreak thinking you can just walk faster than shamblers, then find yourself surrounded because you didn't take them seriously. Overconfidence is the #1 killer in disasters. This game weaponizes it. But the worst zombie game of all time goes to Amy. Amy tried to teach you that protecting someone vulnerable gets you both killed, which is actually true but made it so unplayable you learn nothing except that broken controls kill you faster than zombies. In reality, yeah, kids are liabilities in survival situations. This game accidentally makes that point by being torture to play. All 3 share the same fatal flaw. They make survival look manageable when it's not. Remember that we'll come back to it when I show you what real difficulty looks like, but this was the lowest level of zombie games. And throughout the video I will show you 6 more levels, each one getting more insane, starting with the next one, which gives us some actual playable games. Level 2, basic games. State of Decay. 2 teaches you that survival is a group effort, which is true. You're not going lone wolf in a real outbreak unless you want to die alone. You recruit survivors, build a base, scavenge supplies, and deal with internal drama, which mirrors reality. Humans are messy and selfish, even when death is outside the walls. The plague zombies add a biological threat, forcing you to manage infection risks, which is smart. Real pandemics spread through contact and contamination. But here's where it goes soft. The game lets you fix mistakes too easily. Run out of food? Just drive to another house and loot it, no problem. Someone dies? Recruit a replacement? Horde attacks? Defend for a few minutes and it's over. Real resource scarcity means once the nearby areas are picked clean, you're done. No respawning loot, no convenient supply drops, and defending a base against sustained attacks would exhaust you in days, not save you. The game teaches the right checklist, but not the crushing weight of actually doing it. Keep that in mind because the games coming later don't give you that mercy. Zombie Army is all about lining up slow-motion headshots on zombie Nazis, which, let's be honest, is deeply satisfying, but also completely useless for actual survival. The game is horde mode mayhem, endless waves of undead soldiers shambling at you while you mow them down with sniper rifles, which in reality would be the absolute worst weapon choice for a zombie outbreak. Snipers are loud, attract every infected in a mile radius, require precision ammo you can't replace, and leave you helpless if anything gets close. The game makes it look cool, but you'd be dead in minutes trying this in real life. Plus, the supernatural angle, zombie Hitler, occult resurrection, makes it clear this isn't grounded survival, it's schlock horror fun. At least it's honest about being ridiculous. Unlike some games that pretend to teach you something and don't. ZombiU lands in the basic tier because it tries to be hardcore with permadeath and survival tension, but the execution is clunky enough that it teaches bad habits as much as good ones. This Wii U exclusive was all about one bite, you're dead, respawn as a new survivor, and your old character is now a zombie carrying your stuff, which brutal and kind of realistic. The survival lesson here is decent. Every encounter matters, infection is instant and lethal, and you can't tank hits. That's real. In an outbreak, one bite, one scratch, you're done. There's no health bar to refill, just slow death or immediate turning depending on the infection. The permadeath mechanic forces caution, which is smart. Real survival is about avoiding conflict, not winning it. But the game's clunky controls and slow combat mean you die as much from fighting the interface as from zombies, which undermines the lesson. You'd learn to be cautious, sure, but also frustrated. And frustration in a real crisis gets you killed because you make rash decisions. Level 2 games really nail the base of what makes a zombie apocalypse game good, but they just haven't perfected any extra stuff, in my opinion. Though, don't get me wrong, they are not bad. Unlike the controversial take coming up, you might hate me for. Level 3, mid-games. Some of these mid-games teach you more than the ones ranked higher. Not because they're better designed, but because they accidentally nail specific truths about Outbreak survival. Let's start with the most divisive one. Days Gone hits mid-tier because it nails the terror of hordes, but wraps it in a biker power trip that undercuts the survival horror. You play a drifter in Oregon dealing with freakers, which are fast infected, not undead, and they swarm in hundreds, which is genuinely terrifying and kind of realistic for how fast pandemics spread. The game teaches you that hordes are unstoppable, which is true. 100 infected running at you at once. You're not fighting that, you're running or dying. The bike mechanics force resource management. You need fuel, repairs, and upgrades, which mirrors real vehicle dependence in rural areas. No car, you're stranded. The freakers are also animalistic, attracted to sound and movement, which is smart. Real infected behavior would be reactive, not strategic. But here's where it wobbles. The game lets you go full action hero, crafting explosives, setting traps, and mowing down hordes with machine guns, which, sure, feels epic, but isn't survival. It's extermination. In reality, you'd avoid hordes entirely. They're too dangerous, too numerous. You'd sneak around, not set up elaborate ambushes unless you had military resources, and even then, it's risky. Here's what Days Gone gets right that most games don't. Hordes are unstoppable. Not hard, not challenging, genuinely unbeatable without perfect positioning and resources. The game shows you 100 infected can overrun military defenses in minutes, which is accurate. Where it lies is making you think you can fight back with enough explosives. You can't. The real lesson is the one it doesn't intend to teach. Avoid hordes entirely, stay mobile, and accept that some areas are just gone. And that motorcycle, that's the game's smartest mechanic, and most people don't realize it. The real lesson is the bike. Mobility is survival. Staying in one place makes you a target. The game's open world shows rural areas lasting longer than cities, which tracks lower population density means slower spread, but eventually everywhere falls. Remember that mobility trumps firepower. We'll see this pattern again in the Masterclass tier, but done correctly. It's fun, it's tense, but it's still a game where you're winning fights you'd lose in real life. Dead Island ranks here because it blends survival horror with melee combat and co-op, which is both its strength and weakness. You're trapped on a tropical island overrun by infected, and the game focuses on crafting weapons and working together, which is actually solid survival logic. The melee focus is smart. Guns are loud and ammo is scarce, so you're bashing zombies with pipes, hammers, and electrified machetes, which is way more sustainable than shooting. Real survival would rely on quiet, reusable weapons, and Dead Island gets that, even if it makes it way too easy to repair and upgrade gear. The co-op angle is crucial. Groups survive longer than individuals. You need people to watch your back, share resources, and handle different tasks. The game's RPG elements let you specialize tank, medic, damage dealer, which mirrors how real groups would divide roles. But here's the catch. Dead Island is grindy and repetitive. You're doing the same fetch quests and fighting the same zombie types over and over, which dulls the survival edge. In a real outbreak, the repetition would be psychological torture. The same fear, same scavenging, day after day, until you break. Here's where Dead Island nails something most survival games miss entirely: boredom. The repetitive fetch quests everyone complains about, that's accidentally the most realistic part. Real survival is repetitive. Same scavenging routes, same fear, same tasks, day after day until you break mentally before you break physically. The game makes you feel it without meaning to, which brings us to a game that DID mean to make you feel it. The first State of Decay ranks mid because it was groundbreaking for community survival, but still too forgiving to be brutal. You manage a group of survivors, build a base, and deal with permadeath for characters, which was ambitious for its time and taught some harsh lessons. The game's best feature is character permadeath. You lose someone, they're gone. No reload, which forces you to care and plan carefully. That's real. People die in disasters, and you don't get them back. The psychological weight of that is crushing, and the game makes you feel it. Resource management is constant: food, medicine, ammo, building materials, and you're always one bad run from collapse, which mirrors how fragile survival really is. The zombie threats escalate: hordes, special infected, infestations, forcing you to adapt, which is smart. Static threats get easier over time, but evolving ones keep you on edge. But the game's still a bit easy. You can recover from mistakes, build back up, find new survivors, and the base defense is manageable with prep. State of Decay gets the structure of long-term survival right. It's just too gentle about showing you what that actually costs. You want to see that cost? That's coming in God tier, and it's not fun at all. Before that, though, We have to look at the classic zombie games we all know and love, I hope. Level 4, Cult Classics. Okay, real talk. These next games are ridiculous, objectively absurd. Squirt guns, bedazzled chainsaws, playing as the zombie. This is where survival horror becomes survival comedy. But here's the thing that'll mess with your head. These cartoon games teach you improvisation and adaptability better than most realistic simulators. Let me prove it. Zombies Ate My Neighbors ranks cult classic because it's goofy, nostalgic, and accidentally teaches you improvisation and resource scarcity in the best way. This Super Nintendo gem has you rescuing neighbors from zombies, werewolves, and chainsaw maniacs using squirt guns, soda cans, and weed whackers, which sounds absurd, but is low-key survival genius. The game forces improvisation. You've got limited ammo for every weapon, so you're constantly switching between whatever works, which is exactly how real survival goes. You're not finding an armory, you're using a frying pan and hoping for the best. The level design teaches situational awareness. Zombies spawn everywhere. Neighbors are scattered, and you need to prioritize who to save and when, which mirrors triage in a real crisis. You can't save everyone, and trying will get you killed. The variety of enemies, zombies, mutants, evil dolls, forces adaptability, which is key. Real threats aren't uniform. You're dealing with different dangers requiring different tactics, but it's also cartoonish. You're not feeling the weight of survival. You're playing a fun arcade game, so the lessons are there but buried under humor and pixelated gore. It's cult classic tier because it's beloved, weird, and more useful than it looks, even if it's wrapped in 90s weirdness. That's almost as weird as Lollipop Chainsaw. You play a cheerleader slicing through the undead, and it's self-aware schlock, not survival horror. The game's lesson, if you can call it that, is speed and aggression. You're constantly attacking, dodging, and chaining combos, which, sure, keeps you moving, and mobility is survival. But you're doing it with a chainsaw, which in reality is the worst zombie weapon imaginable. Chainsaws are loud, heavy, need fuel, jam constantly, and if you mess up, you're cutting yourself. Not the zombie. The game's humor and style make it clear it's not trying to teach you anything practical, it's a parody, a middle finger to serious survival horror, which is fine. But it means if you're learning from this, you're learning wrong. The only real takeaway is confidence and momentum can carry you through chaos, which is psychologically true. Panic kills, action keeps you alive, but this game takes that to cartoonish extremes. The brutal truth is, Lollipop Chainsaw is entertainment, not education, and that's okay. It knows what it is. If your survival plan involves cheerleading and chainsaws, you're dead, but at least you'll look fabulous doing it. It's cult tier because it's memorable, absurd, and doesn't pretend to be anything else. Stubbs the Zombie ranks cult because you play as the zombie, which flips the script and accidentally teaches you how outbreaks spread and why humans fail. You're a 50s-era undead salesman infecting a retro-futuristic city, and it's darkly hilarious. The game shows infection mechanics from the zombie side. Every human you kill joins your horde, which is exponential growth, the exact reason real pandemics spiral out of control so fast. One infected becomes 10, becomes 100, and suddenly the military can't contain it, which is accurate. Diseases spread faster than responses. You also see human failures. They panic, they shoot each other, they barricade the wrong places, and you exploit that, which is what real zombies or infected would do. Not intentionally, but because humans are predictable under stress. The game's humor masks a grim truth. Society collapses not because zombies are unstoppable, but because people are stupid, selfish, and disorganized. But none of the games so far have been anywhere near as good as Level 5's, especially not the last one. Level 5? Nostalgic games. These are the games that defined zombie gaming, starting with the most popular. Plants vs. Zombies ranks nostalgic because it's a cute tower defense game that actually teaches resource management and defensive strategy better than most serious survival games. You're planting sunflowers and pea shooters to defend your lawn from waves of zombies. And it's brilliant. The game teaches economy and prioritization. You need sunlight, your resource, to plant defenses, and you can't build everything, so you choose what counters the current threat. That's real survival. Limited resources mean hard choices. Do you fortify the walls or stockpile food? You can't do both perfectly. The layered defense concept, slowing zombies, damaging them, finishing them off, mirrors real fortification strategy. One barrier fails, you need backups. The variety of zombie types, fast, armored, flying, forces adaptability, which is key in disasters. Threats evolve. Your plan has to evolve too, but it's also a puzzle game, not a survival sim, so you're not feeling the terror, just solving patterns. It's nostalgic tier because it's timeless, accessible, and smarter than it looks. House of the Dead ranks here because it's pure arcade action, light gun shooting zombies in the face, and while it's nostalgic and fun, it teaches you exactly one thing: aim for the head, which, okay, valid, but that's where the education ends. The game's on rails, you're not choosing paths or managing resources, just reacting to zombies popping out and shooting them before they hit you. That reflex training is actually useful. Real encounters would be sudden and violent, hesitation kills, and House of the Dead drills snap decisions into you. The boss fights add variety, mutated creatures that need strategy, which hints at evolved threats, but mostly you're just shooting. The game's plot, mad scientist, bioweapons, apocalypse, is classic horror schlock that doesn't teach survival. It teaches tropes. The brutal truth is House of the Dead is a reflex trainer disguised as a zombie game, and reflexes matter, but they're not enough. You need planning, endurance, resource management, all the stuff this game ignores because it's a quarter muncher from the 90s. The headshot lesson is real though. Destroying the brain stops most undead or infected. That's consistent across media and rooted in basic biology. No brain function, no threat. It's nostalgic because it's a classic, but it's not saving your life. It's just fun. Resident Evil 1996 ranks nostalgic because it invented the survival horror formula. Limited resources, tank controls, and a mansion full of undead. And even today, its lessons hold up. You're trapped in a sprawling estate, rationing ammo, solving puzzles, and running from zombies you can't always fight, which is survival horror perfection. The game teaches conservation. You've got maybe 15 bullets and 50 zombies, so you avoid combat, use knives, and only shoot when necessary, which is real survival logic. Ammo is finite, every shot counts, and fighting is a last resort. The resource management extends to healing items, saves, and inventory space, forcing constant risk assessment. Do you carry more ammo or healing? Do you backtrack for supplies or push forward? The mansion setting is claustrophobic, teaching you that enclosed spaces are death traps, one wrong turn and you're cornered with no escape. The puzzles add realism. Real survival isn't just combat, it's problem solving, navigating hazards, and adapting to obstacles. Resident Evil built the survival horror formula. Limited resources, careful movement, every encounter matters. It's foundational, it's influential, but it's not the end, because the games coming next took that formula and asked, what if we stopped letting you win? Level 6, Masterclass games. Alright, safety's off. The next 3 games don't care about your fun. They care about teaching you. And what they teach is this: survival isn't heroic, it's not cinematic, and you're not special. You're just another person trying not to die. Let's see how long you last. Dying Light hits Masterclass because it nails the day-night cycle survival dynamic and makes mobility your best weapon. You're in a quarantined city, scavenging by day and fleeing for your life at night, and the parkour mechanics turn urban environments into playgrounds and death traps. The game teaches that daytime is for preparation, nighttime is for terror, which mirrors real survival. You work during safe hours and hide when threats peak. The infected are slow during the day, manageable with melee weapons and tactics, but at night, volatiles come out fast, deadly, and relentless, forcing you to run or hide. That escalation teaches you can't fight everything. Sometimes survival is about avoiding conflict entirely. The parkour emphasizes mobility. You're climbing, jumping, using rooftops, which is smart. Urban survival would rely on vertical movement, staying off streets where hordes gather. The melee focus is realistic. You craft weapons from scraps, they break, you improvise, which is how real survivors would operate. No gun caches, just whatever you find. The game's resource loop, scavenge, craft, survive, is grounded. You need food, water, and materials, and the city's picked cleaner over time, teaching you scarcity escalates. The co-op adds realism. Groups survive better, but more people mean more needs, more risk. The infection spreads through bites, the quarantine walls failing, the military retreating. It all mirrors pandemic collapse, containment fails, society fractures, and you're on your own. Dying Light shows you threats escalate, and mobility saves you. Good lessons. But it still lets you win fights you shouldn't. The next game doesn't give you that option. Dead Rising did something most games won't. It gave you a timer, not for drama, for realism. Because in real disasters, you don't have unlimited time. You have windows, critical moments, and if you waste them, people die, and you can't reload to save them. Let me show you why that's brilliant and brutal. Dead Rising ranks Masterclass because it drops you in a zombie-infested mall with a timer, limited saves, and the freedom to use anything as a weapon, which is chaos and creativity combined. You've got 72 hours to survive, save people, and uncover the outbreak's cause, and every choice matters. The timer teaches you survival isn't open-ended. You have deadlines, limited windows, and wasting time kills you, which is accurate. Real disasters have critical moments where action or inaction determines life or death. The weapon variety, anything from chainsaws to lawnmowers to teddy bears, teaches improvisation. You use what's available, not what's optimal. The psychopath bosses, humans who snap during the outbreak, show the real threat is people, not zombies, which is brutal and true. Disasters bring out the worst in humanity, and the most dangerous encounters are with the living. The survivor escort missions are frustrating but realistic. Saving people is hard. They panic, slow you down, and might betray you, mirroring real group dynamics. The photography mechanic is weird but clever, documenting the outbreak, which parallels how survivors would need to record information for authorities, assuming anyone's listening. The mall setting is iconic, Romero's Dawn of the Dead influence, and it's smart. Malls have supplies, but they're finite, and once they're gone, you're starving in a tomb of consumerism. The infection's cause, bioterrorism, and the military cover-up add layers of conspiracy that feel real. Governments lie, experiments leak, and civilians pay the price. The reality is, Dead Rising teaches you survival is messy, moral, and time-sensitive. You can't do everything. You make hard calls, and some people die because you couldn't reach them. The game's difficulty spikes and save system are brutal, but that's the point. Real survival doesn't have checkpoints. It's masterclass because it respects consequences and doesn't let you play hero without cost. Left 4 Dead ranks masterclass because it perfected co-op survival and introduced the AI director, which dynamically adjusts difficulty, making every playthrough unpredictable, just like a real outbreak. You're 4 survivors fighting through hordes to escape, and teamwork is mandatory. The game teaches you can't survive alone, period. You need teammates to revive you, cover you, and share resources, which is survival basics. Isolated individuals die fast. Groups last longer. The special infected, hunters, smokers, tanks, force coordination. You can't solo them. You need callouts, focus fire, and tactics, which mirrors how real groups handle threats. Communication is survival. The horde mechanics are relentless. Noise attracts them, so you balance speed and stealth, which is accurate. In a real outbreak, every gunshot, every alarm brings more danger. The AI director's dynamic spawning means you can't memorize encounters. You adapt on the fly, which is real chaos. Disasters don't follow scripts. The game's pacing, safe room to safe room, mirrors real evacuation strategies. You move in stages, secure areas, restock, and push forward. You don't sprint to the end, you crawl. The finales, holdout scenarios where you wait for rescue, teach defensive strategy, limited ammo, waves of enemies, and the need to prioritize targets. The infected types evolve, from common to special to tanks, showing threat escalation, which is pandemic realism. Diseases mutate, outbreaks worsen, and what worked yesterday fails tomorrow. The reality check is, Left 4 Dead respects teamwork and chaos. It doesn't let you Rambo, it forces cooperation and punishes lone wolves. The game's intensity, constant action, mirrors the exhausting reality of survival. You don't get breaks. The pressure never stops, and eventually you collapse. So, we've covered mobility, time pressure, and teamwork. 3 pillars of real survival. You'd think that's enough to prepare you. It's not even close, because none of these games make you face the one thing that kills more survivors than zombies: starvation or infection combined. And that's coming next. Level 7. God tier games. We've reached the end. 3 games. 3 different lessons about what actually kills you in an outbreak. Spoiler, it's not the zombies. Number 3 teaches you everywhere is a trap. Number 2 teaches you survival is boring, brutal, and inevitable failure. Number 1 teaches you the thing no one wants to admit. You'd become the monster. Let's start where most survival games end when you think you're safe. Resident Evil 2. Remake hits God tier because it takes the original survival formula and perfects it with modern tech, making every encounter terrifying and every resource precious. You're trapped in Raccoon City as the T-virus outbreak peaks, and the game refuses to hold your hand. The remake teaches resource scarcity better than almost any game. You've got limited inventory, sparse ammo, and enemies that soak bullets, forcing you to decide when to fight and when to run. That's real survival. You can't kill everything. Conservation is life, waste is death. The Lickers, blind but sound sensitive, teach you stealth and patience. Real threats don't always see you, but noise gets you killed. Mr. X, the unstoppable tyrant stalking you, adds persistent dread, teaching you nowhere is safe. You're always hunted, which mirrors the psychological breakdown of being prey constantly. The game's puzzles force you to explore dangerous areas methodically, teaching you survival requires problem solving under pressure, not just shooting. The infection's corporate origin, Umbrella's greed causing a citywide catastrophe, is horrifyingly realistic. Real disasters often stem from negligence, profit over safety, and cover-ups. Resident Evil 2. Remake perfects the survival horror formula. Scarce resources, persistent threats, no safe spaces. It's mechanically flawless, but it's still a game. You're playing Leon or Claire trained, capable protagonists. You win because the story says so. The next game doesn't give you that luxury. You're not the hero, you're just some random person in Kentucky, and the game's tagline tells you exactly how it ends. It's God tier because it's mechanically perfect, thematically rich, and psychologically brutal without losing the survival horror roots that made the original a legend. Project Zomboid lands in God tier because it's the most realistic zombie survival game ever made, and its tagline is literally, "This is how you died," which tells you everything. It's an isometric sandbox where you survive as long as possible possible in Kentucky during an outbreak, and the game is designed to kill you eventually. This game teaches survival is a grind, not a story arc. You're managing hunger, thirst, exhaustion, injuries, illness, depression, and boredom while avoiding zombies. And every system is interconnected and brutal. You need calories, but food spoils. You need water, but it gets contaminated. You need sleep, but nightmares and stress ruin rest, which is hyper-realistic. Real survival is managing 100 small things that snowball into death if you ignore them. The injury system is punishing. A scratch can infect you. A bite is death. Broken bones cripple you. And the game forces you to bandage, disinfect, and rest. Teaching you first aid isn't optional, it's survival. The zombie hordes are relentless. They don't despawn, they migrate, they break doors, and once an area is overrun, it's lost forever, which mirrors real pandemic spread, containment fails, safe zones collapse, and you're pushed into smaller, more desperate pockets. The game's skill system is grounded. You're not gaining superpowers. You're learning carpentry to board windows, fishing to supplement food, mechanics to maintain your car, which is realistic skill progression. Survival rewards practical knowledge, not combat stats. The mental health mechanics, depression from isolation, panic from danger, boredom from routine, teach you psychological collapse is as deadly as physical threats, which is backed by disaster psychology. People break mentally before physically. The permadeath and no-win condition drill into you that survival isn't beating the game, it's delaying the inevitable, which is the harshest, most honest take on apocalypse survival in gaming. Project Zomboid is the most realistic zombie survival simulator ever made, and that's exactly why most people quit. It's too tedious, too slow, too depressing, which is the point. Real survival isn't fun. It's grinding through another day, managing 100 small tasks, knowing one mistake ends you, knowing you'll slip eventually. The game respects that brutal honesty, but here's what it doesn't show you. What that does to your soul. The moral weight, the choices, the person you become when survival means doing horrible things. That's why the #1 spot goes to a game that isn't about mechanics at all. The Last of Us earns God tier not because of its gameplay, though that's solid, but because it understands survival isn't about mechanics, it's about what you lose along the way. The moral compromises, the people you fail, and the humanity you sacrifice just to see another sunrise. You're Joel, smuggling a kid across a fungal-infected America, and the game breaks you emotionally while teaching you hard truths. The game's infected are grounded in real biology. Cordyceps fungus actually controls insects, and extrapolating that to humans is terrifying and plausible. It's not magic, it's evolution, weaponized. The stages of infection, runners, stalkers, clickers, bloaters, teach escalation, threats evolve. Early stage infected are fast and aggressive. Late stage are blind but deadly, forcing different tactics, which mirrors real pandemic progression. Diseases mutate, symptoms change, and what worked before fails. The stealth mechanics are survival genius. You avoid conflict because resources are scarce and noise attracts hordes. Teaching you real survival is about not being seen, not winning fights. The crafting system, turning scissors and alcohol into makeshift weapons, is realistic improvisation. You're not finding military gear, you're using trash to survive. But here's where The Last of Us transcends gaming. The human enemies, bandits, cannibals, militias, are more dangerous and complex than infected, showing you the real apocalypse threat is other survivors, not zombies. The game forces moral choices. You kill to protect, you lie to survive, you abandon strangers because saving them risks your own life, which is brutal honesty about disaster ethics. Altruism dies fast when resources vanish. The relationship between Joel and Ellie, surrogate father and daughter, drives home that emotional connections are survival tools. They give you purpose, motivation, and humanity, but they're also vulnerabilities. Caring about someone makes you reckless, desperate, and ultimately more dangerous. The game's world building shows societal collapse in stages, quarantine zones clinging to martial law, abandoned cities reclaimed by nature, isolated survivor communities barely holding on, and the Fireflies chasing a vaccine that might restore civilization. Except it won't, because the game's ending admits some collapses are irreversible. The psychological realism is gut-wrenching. Joel's trauma from losing his daughter shapes every decision. Ellie's survivor's guilt from being immune drives her recklessness. And the game never lets you forget that survival isn't heroic. It's ugly, selfish, and traumatic. The enemies aren't evil, they're desperate, same as you, and the game makes you question if you're the hero or just another monster trying to survive. It's God tier because it's not a game about surviving zombies, it's a game about surviving humanity, including your own, and it's the most emotionally devastating, thematically rich, and brutally honest depiction of apocalypse survival in any medium. If you enjoyed this video and want to see 7 levels of zombie movies, click the video on the screen.